All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the September 14, 9 a.m. Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody, and we do have some items. I have now called the meeting to order. We will establish a quorum and do some introductions in a moment, but I believe that we have some elected officials from Teller County that would like to welcome us, and I'd like to give them the floor to do that. So please proceed.
Can you pick up a microphone so people at home can hear you?
Dan Williams, thanks, Chair, for the speak up here with Bob Campbell. So we're the three commissioners from Teller County. I happen to be the current chair. Rotate hands, we got here like a lot of counties. It's an honor for us to have you here. Just a real quick thing, I think Delton talked about it, but the fritters are actually a basic food group, so you don't have to do a real design in the donut. Actually, food today. Those came all the way from big city with the park next to the area. We appreciate what you guys do. Bob and I have multiple boards today, like most commissioners, like you said, about 30 different boards. I'll be doing NACO board later on in Arkansas Water Basin and Bob's got some, so we won't stay long. But it's an honor to have you up here for all those who travel against Stan that we saw each other against Monday and how busy you've been, sir. This is important work. Eric is our leader on this board for Teller County. We're very proud of Eric and District 3, fellow Eric's District 3, which is Woodland Park. Bob is 24 North, and 24 South. You guys are here. We also have our great city manager here. Yeah, we've got our county administrator this song. Sorry, lost. We've got council people like Kelly. So you really got everybody here from Teller County. And as we talk about a lot, we're not the front range. You know, we're certainly don't have the scale and capacity and capability that the front range have, not even 1,000 strong. But we get all the impacts. Today there's 30,000 vehicles passing in front of this road. We have fentanyl impacts, so unfortunately proved that very recently. DUIs, we have all the impacts, and we also get some of the benefits. So as we go through this, I just appreciate you keeping us in mind. We're not the junior partner, we're a partner in a different scale. Sometimes we look at those impacts a little bit more. So with that, I just want to turn it over to Bob. Bob, any comments you have, sir?
I just say welcome up to Teller County. It's our home. It's our beautiful place of heaven. We're in the sheriff's office, brand new building as of about a year ago, and we paid for it cash. We have no county debt at all, so we paid $7 million to this beautiful building because they used to live in a tiny little old firehouse with 4 trailers attached to it. So it's a long time coming, but it's a nice complex. Meet all the needs. Welcome to Teller County and Divide.
That's well said at first stand. That application, if anybody doesn't behave and listen to the gavel, it's real close.
It's a short walk to the jail, huh? Thank you very much. I just, on behalf of PPACG, I just would like to sincerely express our gratitude to Teller County, to the team up here, to the sheriff's office for allowing us to hold the meeting up here. And for those of you that are online, you may not be able to see everything in the room here, but there's really a large number of people from Teller County here. And Dan, you introduced some of those folks, so thank you very much. I'll express my appreciation to the other members of Teller County that are part of the Teller County government for being here. Thank you so much. This is great. And by the way, I mean, we're going to go through a PPACG meeting, but after the meeting, I have time to chat with anybody here that's from Teller County or anywhere else. I'd love to hear what any issues that you might want to bring up that might be appropriate for PPACG to take up. So let's take this opportunity for being here to talk to the folks in Teller County and just make sure that we hear you and listen to you for a little bit. I think that's really, really important. So thank you again for hosting all of us. Let's continue through the agenda. And as we typically start, let's first start off, Andy, if we can do a quorum, and let's make that call for us.
Sure. I count a quorum of board members within the room, but what I might suggest, why don't we quickly just go around the table and do self-introductions and which jurisdiction you're with. But I count 8 board members just in person. We have a handful online as well, and we'll do introductions online after that.
Okay, so let's, that's fair enough. Let's do the introductions starting off here in the room, then we'll go online and do the introductions. And perhaps we could start with Roland here on my far right.
I'm Roland Gurney, Mayor Pro Tem of the town of Callahan.
Thank you.
I'm John Graham, Mayor, Manitou Springs.
Todd Dixon, Mayor, Green Mountain Falls.
Kelly Case, Mayor Pro Tem Woodland Park.
No, I appreciate that, but I am interested in hearing everybody, so please introduce yourself.
Kathy Lauer, Executive Director, Teller Senior Coalition.
Thank you.
Brian Johnson, Executive Vice President of PK Enterprises, Inc., which is a property development and management company in Teller County.
Excellent. Thank you.
Big Ellsner, Park County Commissioner.
Very good.
Eric Stone, Teller County Commissioner.
Frank Salvatos, City Administrator, Cripple Creek.
Yeah, Mosier, City Special Projects Director.
Good morning, everyone. Yolanda Avila, City Council, Colorado Springs, District 4.
Andy Gunning, Executive Director of PPACG.
Dolly, Assistant Admin for PPACG.
And I'm Dave Donaldson, Colorado Springs City Council District 1. But Yolanda and I also, it might be interesting for you to know, we serve on as the board of directors for Colorado Springs Utilities. And then I also serve on the El Paso County Board of Health. Is there anything else we're automatically on, Yolanda, besides utilities? Because we do wear some other hats. That's the big one, I guess. And I'm running for the state house, so I'm a candidate for House District 16. So we'll see how that turns out November 8th.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, before we go to online, I know we have people standing up against the wall. I don't know how well the mics translate to the back wall. Do they translate or not?
These pick up really well, I'm told. So let's give it a shot. Yeah.
Let's give it a shot. Go ahead, Bob. I know you introduced yourself already, but let's go around the back wall and make sure everybody gets a chance to be introduced.
Bob Campbell, Teller County Commissioner.
Ross Herzog, County Administrator, Teller County.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. And Andy, I think we'll go online in a second, but since I noticed that we had some people introduce some other boards that they sit on, perhaps we'll get around to that eventually, but I'll just mention for myself, Stan Vanderwerf, El Paso County Commissioner, obviously chair of this board and at present chair of the Board of County Commissioners for El Paso County. And also I sit on the State Board of Health, was just appointed to the state board this year. So if there are issues that Teller County or any other member of PPACG would like to bring up with regard to State Board of Health issues, I would be thrilled to listen to that as well after the meeting today. Shall we go online?
Sure. Maybe starting in the PPACG conference room. I believe Mayor Thompson and others perhaps.
You're the others. Danelle Miller, a transportation planner for PPACG.
I'm Jesse Duncan. I'm the IT and web coordinator for PPACG.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. And there are a couple of county commissioners I know on the line, and I think trustee from Palmer Lake. Do you all want to introduce yourselves?
Holly Williams, El Paso County Commissioner.
Blant Havener, trustee, Town of Palmer Lake.
Tammy Bremer, El Paso County Commissioner.
Darcy Shaning, Monument Trustee.
Great. Is there anybody else that has not had an opportunity to introduce themselves? All right, hearing none, let's go ahead and proceed with the agenda. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for your introductions. Great meeting. We've got a lot of municipalities and counties represented here, and I think that's pretty awesome. So let's go ahead and proceed. Our first item on the agenda is for the agenda approval. Are there any comments or questions from anybody from the board on the agenda? All right. Oh, yes, please. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, this is Dick Ellsner, move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second? All right, there's a motion and a second. One last opportunity if there are questions or comments. All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Are there any, thank you. Are there any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Let's move on to item number 3, public comments. Do we have anybody from the public that is interested in providing comments to PPACG this morning?
And just for clarification, folks can comment on other items that we do have on the agenda, the Tri-County study and others. So we'll get to those here in just a few minutes.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I appreciate that. I'm not hearing anybody, so let's go ahead and proceed to item number 4, the consent items. We have 4A, 4B, and 4C. Are there any questions from any of the board members regarding any of the consent items, questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Move to approve Sharon Thompson.
All right, thank you. Let's see, do we have a proper recording of, we kind of had 2 people making a motion that we captured one of them.
We did.
Okay, who are you stating made the motion?
Commissioner Williams, is that who you picked up? Yeah.
And Councilman Donaldson, I second the motion.
Oh, okay, thank you. I was going to offer Roland the opportunity to second, but it's.
Do that.
All right, Roland, would you like to second?
I would, please. Thank you.
Okay, so we do have a second at this point for item number 4. Again, any opportunity for comments or questions? All right, hearing none, let's go ahead and proceed with a vote. All those in favor of approving items 4A, B, and C signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? All right, hearing none, let's move to item number 5. Do we have any military representatives today?
So Jeff Bond online. Jeff, are you still there?
I am here, and thank you. I'm standing in and representing Colonel Dave Hansen. We just happened to be having our first combined Space Base Delta One staff meeting where all the commanders from all 3 of the installations are coming together, and he could not be present. I only had one input, and regarding the Air Force climate assessment, I did get word that the next anticipated release date for that is going to be 1 October. So if anyone is anticipating that Air Force assessment, I know that the Army's released theirs probably 6 months ago, but that's where we stand for now on the Air Force. Pending any questions, that's all I have.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Are there any other military members from any of our installations? All right, hearing none, I'll just make one announcement on behalf of NORAD Northcom. I did participate in a social last night with the commander of NNC. That was a great social. But just as a reminder, he did remind us that night, but I've seen the invite as well, that on the 30th of September, NORAD Northcom will be celebrating its 20th anniversary. And there is a ceremony mid-afternoon on the 30th. It looks like it starts at 2:30. So I would presume that's something that people may have an opportunity to participate in. If you wish to do so, contact NORAD Northcom if you don't have an invite. And they might be willing to get that invite over to you. But it will be the 20th anniversary. And I can tell you, El Paso County and really the entire region is proud to host NORAD Northcom here. So it's going to be a great event, as I believe. All right. I don't think we've got anybody else. Let's go on to the action items. And it looks like item 6A, our tri-county study adoption, is our first order of business. Andy, let's go ahead and proceed.
Sure, and I'll just introduce it. Jason O'Brien has been our lead senior transportation planner that's been working on this project. And it's timely that we're finally at the point of approval for this project that really does span all 3 counties within our region. So happy to be able to present it for final approval here in Teller County. I know that there was active participation from folks in the county and the jurisdictions up here and in Park County as well. Glad to see that former Commissioner Norstein is here as well, because he was instrumental in helping us get this started about 3+ years ago, I think. So appreciate everybody's patience. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason.
Morning, Jason.
Morning, thank you.
And while they're pulling up the technology, sure. And just a quick shout out and thank you before we dig into the Tri-County study. I know that on CDOT side, Shane It was helpful in bringing folks up to the meeting this morning, so appreciate CDOT's help in pulling all this together. And thank you to Kyle and Julie, Teller County IT folks, helping to make this all possible. So really appreciate all the support here in Teller County. So you ready to go?
Sorry, folks, new equipment. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit on this first slide for a minute. It's our Tri-County Study logo. So the project concept has been around since 2019, when this board actually observed that there had been an organized effort to assist with transportation planning and funding throughout the whole 3-county council of government region, including the rural county areas. That's usually unavoidable because it's a constraint on our federal funding, but with some great help from CDOT, from Region 2, and from Wendy Pettit in particular, who really went above and beyond to make sure that this effort was supported and funded. We were able to put some funding to the Tri-County study and really address that concern. There was some delay due to circumstances beyond our control, so the project ended up kicking off actually in May of last year. But now it's been over a year, it's been about 15 months. We've learned a lot, we've come a long way, and we're finally ready to ask for your approval of this study. The study has come before this board before as an information item in May of this year, so not that long ago, and we gave a quite detailed report. So we didn't want to drag everybody through all of that again, but I do have a short presentation here today just to put things back in context after a couple months and just because we're going to be asking for your approval today. There were 2 attachments in the packet for this item. One is the final draft report that we're seeking your approval for, and the other is the detailed slide deck from May that I was just referring to. And then I think if you'll permit me, I think I'd like to do the last thing first and add some more thanks on behalf of PPACG and the project team. I'd like to thank Commissioner Stone and Teller County Public Works Director Fred Clifford, Commissioner Elsner, and Park County Manager Tom Eisenman, and Victoria Chavez from Park County, and Victoria Chavez and Jason Meyer from El Paso County. Without these folks and their guidance in helping us understand local issues and their assistance getting local stakeholders to the table, we really would not have gotten very far in this project. So their guidance has been very much appreciated. And again, Wendy Pettit and CDOT and Region 2 were also instrumental in getting us funded and supported for this project. So big thanks there. So to put things in context, I know there's some different levels of familiarity with this project. If you look at the map on the left, you can see the different nested geographies that we exist in. So if you look at the smallest boundary, the sort of crosshatched area, that's our metropolitan planning region, which regularly receives federal funds to do a long-range transportation plan and a transportation improvement program, which is a funding program. If you look at the largest boundary, that's a state subdivision, TPR, that also gets planned regularly every few years, the state resources. And that mostly is limited to state facilities and routes. What doesn't get any regular attention is the green shaded area, which is the whole of the Pikes Peak Area Council government. So that just gives you an idea. That doesn't get any regular attention. And what slips through the cracks there are facilities like regionally significant county roads. So those serve county purposes, but they may also have other important functions, like they may be the only access to take state parks or national forests, things like that. And those burdens fall on the counties. So that's a pretty big deal. So we want to get that addressed in this study. The other study I mentioned that we do regularly is long-range transportation plan. So every few years we do a federally funded long-range plan for our NPO area. And that's pretty similar to the Tri-County study in some ways. You know, it's long-range, it's comprehensive, it's multimodal. But there are some key differences that I'm going to go through real quick here. First of all, the Tri-County study is voluntary. Nobody's requiring us to do it. Our member jurisdictions wanted to do this study. It's the first of its kind in the region and the state, and it's come to our attention that there are other regions that are already planning on duplicating this effort. So we've been a leader in doing this study. It's going to be a one-time deal. Unless there's a desire to do it again or do an update at some point, funding is identified. It includes our rural areas. It's outward facing, and I'm going to unpack that one a little bit. So when we do our long range transportation plan and our TIP, That's really kind of in the nature of divvying up sort of the pool of funds that come to the region. The Tri-County study looks outward and seeks to secure funding that would not otherwise come to the region. So it's sort of aimed outwards at bringing in funds we wouldn't otherwise get. It helps develop project concepts where they're lacking. It's not connected to a dedicated funding mechanism like our transportation improvement program. And it's not a problem, but some of the projects in the Tri-County study will need further development, further study, additional public process before they're ready to move forward. And finally, it's a study, not a plan. And I'm going to unpack that one a little bit too, just for a minute, because that's a really key thing. So what does that mean exactly? Well, the project list in the Tri-County study is not fiscally constrained. There's not a set budget. You're not going to find any vision, mission, goals, or objectives in the Tri-County study. There was no project prioritization or plan of action where one jurisdiction's project becomes more important than another. What it does have is it has information about conditions and systems throughout the three-county region, deficiencies and needs, projects that could be implemented on their own or incorporated into other plans in the future, maybe a state plan or regional plan like the PPACG plan. The point here is that you need to identify the projects and have a good need statement and some support before all those things become available. That opens up all those options. So that's what the Tri-County study does.
Yes, please go ahead.
Therefore, Tim Goldberg, I'm a representative of the town of Callahan, and I don't see part of the PPACG boundary on the map.
I'm sorry, what's the question? You don't see the. Let me run the mouse over there.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking of
It's
all
the
of the green.
Yeah.
For the record, just to clarify, the PPACG boundary is the area that's in green on that map. Is that correct?
That is correct,
As
yes.
well as, yeah, there's like a little tail down on the bottom here.
That's the TPR.
Okay,
That's
gotcha.
That's a CDOT subregion. The CDOT subregion is 5 counties. It includes the PPACG region plus Fremont and Custer counties. But this plan this study only covers the green shaded region, which is the PPACG region.
I think what's interesting and illustrative of that map is it's, once you kind of unpack the map, you see the MPO region, the PPACG region, and the TPR plan region, and none of them match up. Which makes for, I think, as in the past and also going forward, a lot of interesting conversations about how to kind of address and integrate and do those kinds of things. But all 3 of them are on that map, and I think it's very illustrative of sometimes the challenges that we have about trying to do coordinated work with a variety of different things. Is your question answered, Roland?
I'm still standing up for Callahan.
Absolutely, and I wouldn't expect anything else.
Commissioner Williams?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yes, I don't know if there's been changes since I've read it the last time, but I was really impressed with the plan. I wanted to thank those who did it. I found of interest from a transportation perspective, of course, and I should know the road, but 285 in Park County, right, Commissioner Elsner?
That is correct.
That I think we really need to find a way to, as you know, not to diminish the concerns of Teller County, which would be Highway 24, or even the concerns of the Highway 24 in Eastern El Paso County. We've got to start, you know, moving together when we get to the statewide transportation committee to really push 285 up as an alternate route. The other route that I found fascinating, which would probably be, you know, long after I am not an elected official, is Rampart Range Road. And that was fascinating going from, I think it's a much more scenic route, certainly, but getting people out of the mountains back up into Douglas County. I found that one really fascinating in there too, but it's a very, very excellent plan. It includes a lot of stuff, including fire mitigation and emergency access and some great needs for our Tri-County area. Thank you for all the hard work of staff.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I know that you'll continue with the presentation, but some of the things that I like about it, I'll make that, it's the second bullet on the chart that's up at the moment. First of its kind in the COG and the state. And when you go through and look at the content, for those that are not familiar with this, there's a lot of proposed initiatives. Again, no tie-in with budgets, but it's a statement of needs. And I like that because sometimes you got to know what your requirements are, even though they're not connected to a budget, because it gives you a vision about what to do going forward. And I'll just give a few examples here that are I would believe would be of interest to Park and Teller. Initiative number 4 is a trail from Fairplay to Alma, page 89, if I'm reading correctly. And initiative number 5 is a fluorescent fossil bed national monument pedestrian crossing. And there's a lot more content in here than those two. But I find when you see that kind of content in a document, I think you can start to make comments about it being comprehensive. And I think you can also say, we asked for a lot of input from members of PPACG about what their needs are. So again, not connected to budget directly, but gives us a document that we can start making advocacy for going forward. And I think that's very useful. So I just use those two as examples, but there's plenty more in here. And you'll find interests across the PPACG jurisdiction.
And just to amplify that just a little bit more, Mr. Chair, is that I think this came out of our strategic planning conversations we had back in 2018, 2019, where the smaller jurisdictions outside of that MPO area, whether it was Calhoun and Rama, or Fairplay, Alma, Cripple Creek, Victor, outside of our MPO planning area that's in the boundary, really didn't feel the love and attention as far as transportation planning from us, as an organization. So it took a while to kind of figure out how to make that all happen. So this was one way to knit together all 16 of our jurisdictions and identify what those critical needs are.
Great, awesome. Shall we continue? Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. And on behalf of PPACG and the project team, thank you for the kind remarks. We're very pleased that you're happy. And, other than ourselves, a lot of folks in El Paso, Teller, and Park County gave their time to this effort to make sure that it was informed and detailed. And we learned a lot of things that we didn't know at the outset.
I think we're, for those online, we're having a moment of technical difficulty about advancing the chart, but we'll get that going again in just a moment.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, and just quickly, a list of key deliverables. Everybody wants to know exactly what they're going to get out of something. So, of course, the list of projects, especially projects that are not listed or supported in any other plans or documents, and development of project concepts and initiatives where everybody knows there's a need, but there was no existing project concept to push forward. And then just a better understanding of the transportation needs and opportunities of the whole 3-county region. I was going to walk through some milestones real quick, just the project process in a slide. And so in May of last year, Felsberg Holt Mulevik was hired to lead the study. Last summer, we started an extensive stakeholder process and review of existing plans. In December, we had on-site stakeholder meetings in El Paso, Teller, and Park County. The Teller County meeting was in this room. It was an excellent meeting. So happy to be back. Early in the year, some topical focus groups met to advance the coordination of certain areas that look like they might benefit from it. In April of this year, the phase 1 report and the list of projects were completed and circulated for comment. April through June, we pretty much worked on phase 2, which was that development of projects where there wasn't necessarily a project concept in place. And then in June, final draft report was completed, and there was a 30-day public comment period initiated. We have brought the project to this board a couple of times previously. The funding was approved as part of a TIP amendment by this board in January of 2020. We did give a progress report in October of last year, just to get everybody up to speed where we were. And then, as I said earlier, in May of this year, there was a review of process and findings to date, and that was pretty extensive. So instead of going through everything again, I thought I'd just sort of tick off the areas that we discussed previously. Our project approach, which was to focus mostly, but not exclusively, on rural areas, and other aspects of the project approach. We took our extensive stakeholder process, deliverables from each project phase, and a few words about the funding plan that's going to accompany the Tri-County study, findings from the review of existing plans, and some key findings from the focus group. So those are things we've talked about previously in May. And since then, we've spent most of that time on the detailed development of some of the projects. So phase one, an almost year-long effort, one slide here. For the Tri-County study, we wanted some good context and we wanted to avoid duplication of effort. So there was a review and summary of 43 already existing local and regional plans, just to capture all of that. There were about 40 meetings and interviews as part of our stakeholder process, so very extensive stakeholder process. And that included topical focus groups, county stakeholder meetings, and individual group interviews. We did have a few focus groups. And focus groups were convened where there were some, technically significant opportunities for better coordination or better understanding. There was a trails group, transit, technology and communications, which is where we learned about the need for things like broadband and better cell service, and then an emergency planning group. And finally, the project list that resulted, 92 projects were identified throughout the three-county area, primarily in the rural areas. This is just a snapshot of the tables from the Tri-County study, the project list. They don't quite match up here because they're taken from two different sections. But it just gives you an idea of the kind of information that's there. What's the project? Where is it? Where did it come from? So you have one on here that came out of a focus group meeting, a couple that came out of stakeholder meetings, some short need statements and descriptions, which is basically all the information in brief that you'd want to have if you're considering going for a grant application or trying to get into another plan like a state or TPR plan. The second phase.
If I might interrupt just for a second, and you can validate this comment for me if it's true or not, but let's postulate for a moment. If we go forward and vote to approve this, it becomes official documentation of PPACG that could potentially then be used by the different counties and municipalities to pursue grants to get some of this work funded. So it becomes something that can be used to identify an official representation of PPACG with all of its members. So I just want to make that point that it can be potentially a useful document. And I think this will be an important part of our conversation today is assuming we approve this plan, then what are the next steps about trying to use it to our advantage, right? Yes, Commissioner Elsner.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, after my rant at the last STAC meeting, I was contacted by a couple of transportation commissioners, and one of them was really interested in trying to figure out bus service, more transit, and how to serve from Alma, Fairplay through Lake George and Teller County to Colorado Springs. And one of the things that the study addressed is issues that we have and things we would like to see in Park County as far as bus service, what type of service. So, you look at it, the Transportation Commission is now starting to look at those areas. And now I have a study that I can hand them and say, hey, look, this is what we need. So the timing was absolutely perfect.
Thank you for emphasizing that, Commissioner. I appreciate it. Okay, continue.
Yeah, well, I just want to say that's a perfect example of how we hope and intend the Tri-County study will be used. And I think your summary, Mr. Chair, is exactly what we want to have happen. So project 2, the last couple of months, has consisted of a more detailed development of 17 of the projects, 17 of the 92 projects that we got from the stakeholders. These could be individual projects from phase 1, groupings of projects, And the way that they were chosen was simply that they were high priority to flow development. In other words, we were told by a project proposer that there's something urgently needed there. It's a critical need at a certain location or on a certain road where there's really very little developed. So kind of really doing this where it could do the most good and where there's the greatest urgency. Another element that's been developed during phase 2 is a funding plan. This is a separate database. It's 2 documents, grant inventory and a grant guide framework. One is sort of an exhaustive list of grant opportunities that are available relevant to projects in the Tri-County study. And the other is sort of a guided reference. I really like this one for matching projects with funding. And this is so we're not just saying to our member jurisdictions, thanks for the project ideas, good luck out there. We really want to go a step beyond that and provide resources to do some good grant targeting, just so everybody can make the most of their time and have the best chance. Okay, and this may be a little bit redundant because of the example just given by Commissioner Elsner, but I'll go through it very quickly. This is really how the Tri-County study is meant to work, what we can really do with it. So a county has a project on a rural county road. This project would improve an important regional corridor that serves a significant function, but the project isn't eligible for TIP funds and it's not in any state or TPR plan. Nobody's really taking care of this project. What the county does is then it uses the funding tools developed for the Tri-County study to identify the best and most likely funding source, the most targeted grant. The county then does 2 things. It uses the details that were developed for the Tri-County study. So a need statement, description, cost estimate, and those things are used to help provide the project and complete the grant application. It then uses the project, it cites the project's listing in the Tri-County study to demonstrate regional support. And you'll know, with most grant opportunities, the questions always come up. Can you check the box? Do you have any partners? Is this regionally supported? Things like that. So these member governments would be able to say, yes, it's in this approved document. It's supported. This is a strong grant application. Just a few notes about the public comment period that was held in June, July. There are no outstanding issues that we know of at this point that we think would cause any contention. We did get a lot of comments from a variety of sources. There was excellent media coverage of this, especially relative to other regional projects that we do more regularly. Got a lot of attention. Comments came from a variety of sources, private individuals, members of the business community, and organizations like the Gold Belt Scenic Byway Group. We got a lot of comments from a lot of people. As you always have with regional documents and regional studies, some of the comments were considered matters for local government and beyond the scope of the study. It's not our place to tell a city or county where they put their stop sign, but others did result in changes, like moving a proposed transit route and partially redesigning a proposed intersection improvement. There was some back and forth in a couple of cases, but we think we've since reached a good point where all parties are satisfied. A few notes on approval as I wrap up our presentation here. Again, the Tri-County is a study, not a plan. And so a nuance for the approval that we're asking for. Approval does not mean, because it's not a plan, that we, the region, are saying we have the intention of implementing all of these projects. What it will do is allow a member government to show regional support if it should decide to seek funding for a project. So I hope that makes sense. Are there any questions about that? And there's language to that effect in the document.
Yes, Commissioner, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, just as an extension of your comments about allowing area governments to apply for that, it also allows area organizations, nonprofits, those who work in partnership, such as Color Senior Coalition, to use this document as, for example, if they're seeking funding for new transit lines to help seniors or other organizations in El Paso and Park counties, for them to be able to take this and seek grant money, whether it's from CDOT or from other funding sources in the state or federal government.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you for that. Definitely true, and a lot of that material is covered in the study that is pretty well supported. Last note, the TAC and CAC at this point do recommend approval of the Tri-County study, and happy to take any questions from anybody. And then otherwise, at this point, I would ask for your approval of the Tri-County study.
Great, thank you. Mr. Donaldson, I believe you've got a comment, or a question you'd like to make.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you, Jason. Could you break out the 92 projects into like how many were trail, how many were transit, how many were improvements? Do you have that?
I don't have that exactly in front of me, but I can talk about it a bit if that's sufficient. Probably the smallest number of projects were in the emergency planning section. We got a pretty cold start there, just because there aren't a lot of resources of the kind that we were looking for developed. There's not a lot of resources and information about the transportation connection with emergency planning in a lot of areas. So that was really more of background and figuring out who has what and who's potentially in trouble in the event of, say, wildfires. There aren't many projects in that section, although there's a few. There's a significant number of trail projects, although most of them are smaller. There are a bunch of transit projects, and I think primarily by the dollar amounts. Of course, it's mostly road projects. I guess I can pull up the study and get into the numbers if you'd like.
It's okay. Do you roughly know, like on a dollar basis, what it is road versus all the rest?
I don't actually. And if I comment on that, if we were talking about something like the long-range plan that we do, which has to be fiscally constrained, we can't put more projects in the plan than we have reasonably estimated funding. But for the Tri-County study, we're not under that constraint, mostly because it's voluntary study and we don't have to come up with, we're not under the constraint of having to come up with what implementing the whole study would cost. Although we could get back to you with that information, certainly, because it would be tough to calculate.
And then, my only concern would be that if the study has lots of trail, lots of transit, and that signifies regional support for moving in that direction and not staying focused on roads, which I think is where 90-some% of people who are moving are on the roads in a private vehicle. I just wouldn't want this to give a wrong impression of what the members really believe is necessary for us to focus on and support. So that's my thought. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Chair, and I'll have some comments to that question as well, but please proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, and Councilman Donaldson, appreciate and agree with the concerns that would be taken that way. That being said, we need to recognize where the funding came from for the study itself, which is through MMOF funds. And so there is a transit bent or a transit intent, or multimodal, I should say, intent to the study itself. And I think that was clear and stated as we began and as we went through the process, is that, I think perhaps in an ideal world, what we probably would have preferred is just money to do a tri-county study. But the money that was found to conduct a tri-county study came through a multimodal fund. So thus there had to be, even though we included traffic in there, and there's significant roadway, there's significant safety in there, is that there's a lot of trail stuff. There's a lot of transit stuff. And it's appropriate back again to the funders that there be a focus on that. The thing that I was concerned at, and my questions got answered very early by Jason and others, is that even though the money was coming from multimodal, because I had significant concerns, honestly, about where we're sitting right now. This particular intersection here in Teller County is a major area of future development, and it is a current bottleneck on traffic as you come out of Colorado Springs. And I would hazard a guess that a significant number of the serious accidents that we have in Teller County occur within about probably a 2-mile radius of where we're sitting right now. This helped identify some of those issues. They're on there now for us to look at, and I think again recognizing that this is a study, and by adopting the study, all we're saying is that these are areas that this group agrees are important. As to how important, I think that then falls back to counties, it falls back to cities as to pursue, and which ones of these projects, now that they've been identified, are the ones that we're going to get on. So this in itself, honestly, I would say, has no power on its own. What it has is the authority of PPACG for those who want to use this to get behind some specific projects that were within it. So again, I share your concerns that, believe me, as Teller County has become more and more of a place where people live and work down in El Paso County, that that roadways are going to remain critical, going to remain important. And I think probably if we do a look back on this in 20 years, we're probably going to see that the road pieces of this are what are going to get the most attention. That being said, Teller County is also an aging county. So for groups like Teller Senior Coalition to be able to use this document to be able to enhance services, whether it be for veterans or just our retired and aging population, so that they can, I think a big goal for all of us is for people to age in place where they are. That's an issue in rural areas. It's an issue in places with high altitude. So it's going to allow us to do that.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner Elsner, I think you had some comments as well.
I did. I'll piggyback on Commissioner Stone's comments. If you take a look at the study, there is an awful lot of transit, but then that's what we need in areas of Park County is a way to get our seniors out, get them to the doctor, get them wherever. So that part of it is big. The other thing the study did, it helped me convince people that we've got a couple of county roads that we're always challenged with maintaining, but we try to do a pretty good job that connect roads that are very significant. If you take a look at 285 and 24, there's a Red Hill Pass that's just outside of Fairplay that constantly has accidents and shuts down the road. While the Elkhorn is a way people can get down to 24 to continue west. I've always said, hey, this is a state, it's a regionally significant, we need to do something. And everybody say, yeah, it's just a county road. Well, this points it out that is a road that would be necessary for resilience and that type of thing. The other thing the study did, you mentioned the bike path from Alma to Fairplay. People say, well, it's just a bike path. Why are we concerned about that? We did get a total of $500,000 grant to engineer that little bike path. But the idea behind that is you've got Highway 9, which is a 2-lane road, and the bike path next to it, we hope to have it engineered to where it can hold an emergency vehicle. So the idea is that if we have to evacuate the area, we can send everybody south on Highway 9 to get out of the area. And emergency services has that bike path then, which is engineered and can handle their vehicles going into the fire. So it's a multi-G, it's just a bike path. This helps identify it. And I think because of some of the emphasis we got out of this early on, we were able to come up with that money. And of course, we now have a study that says that's important. We're going to have an engineering study that says this is how you do it. So then it's my job to figure out where do I find the money. And that's what the study does, is it helps us find the money, because now we have somebody else that says this is important, not just a county commissioner looking after his own county.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. And to Mr. Donaldson's a question, there are some pretty serious road initiative recommendations in here as well, and I'll mention them. One is initiative number 7, which is a 285 corridor study. Number 8 is the Rampart Range road improvements, which is a combination of El Paso and Teller County issues that lead into Douglas County that are some challenging things. Number 9 is Park County Road 102. Number 10 is Park County Road access to state parks. Number 11 is Park County Road 4 and Road 6 connections. And initiative number 12 is Elkhorn Road. So there are clearly road issue initiatives as a combination of a variety of things that are in this document. And again, it's to the points that have been made before. The value generation of it, I think, is to have a PPACG vote on it, and if that vote is successful, it becomes an official document, and that assists Park and Teller counties and to a lesser extent, but also assists El Paso in giving them an opportunity to pursue money through grants or other opportunities in their conversation with CDOT and so forth, because it'll be an official part of our documentation. And often when you're asking for grant money, they're looking for that kind of stuff. So without it, it becomes problematic. So, all right, I don't know if that sufficiently answered your question, Mr. Donaldson, but there are road projects in here. Yes, Yolanda, please.
I'd like to move to approve the study and,
Second. All right, there's a motion and a second, and those are appropriate, is an appropriate motion and a second. Let's continue the conversation. Thank you for the motion. Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Andy?
just to close the loop on did a quick add up in the matrix of projects we have in the study to answer the question of how many of the 92 were broken out. So came up with 20 transit projects, 29 trail projects, 11 roadway projects, and 11 emergency management coordination. But again, the value is in the detail there. There's some really critical, just going through the trail projects like Ring the Peak and reimagining Water Canyon and a bunch of other big economic drivers / trail related projects. So yeah, but for what it's worth, miraculously, the adding up in the matrix came up with the 92 projects that Jason mentioned. Yes.
Yes, Mayor Dixon.
Yeah, I have a question on table 1, item number T3. It stopped, looks like it stops at Peyton. Is there a reason why it didn't go on to Calhan?
Sorry, give us a minute to pull up the.
Yeah, it's the expand transit service to communities along US 24 between Peyton, Falcon, and Colorado Springs. And I was just curious why it didn't expand out to Calhan.
Can you tell me what page? Okay.
Page 36.
I can tell you the likely reason before I even see it, it's probably just the result of what our member governments told us. So we probably heard from someone in Callahan and said, we'd like to extend it out here. And then we may just not have heard anything else. And
That was T3.
Yeah, T3.
I see in the need statement, let's say Peyton also mentioned an area of difficult to travel through Colorado Springs.
I was just curious if there was a reason why it stopped at Peyton and didn't include Calhan.
Oh, I see.
It doesn't appear to include Calhan.
I've got it reversed. Okay, it doesn't talk Callahan.
On the notes that were in there, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think that probably that might have been placed in there by Anita for them looking for opportunities to expand their service. And so they may have identified how far they'd like to see that service go.
Okay.
Just in the notes that are within that specific project.
And just keep in mind, we're in a deliberation over this document. That does mean that there are opportunities for amendments if someone wishes to do so. Roland, you have a comment you'd like to make?
Mr. Chairman, earlier when they presented preliminary last year, that this very thing was brought up at that time. Okay, and then we thought that was resolved. I do not know that. I'm not resolved.
Okay, great. Thank you for the comment.
Mr. Chair, then if the mayor of Callahan believes this is a good idea, I would move that we amend the document to expand T3 out to Callahan.
I'd like to second that motion. I appreciate that.
Okay, very good. There's a couple ways we can address that. We can address the amendment exclusively.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We cannot hear Roland at all. So can you please repeat what
Oh.
was said?
Roland, yes, thank you. Get that. Yeah, first of all, make sure your mic's on. Yeah,
I've got the green line here.
that should be on. I'll just reiterate that we have a motion and a second for item T3 on page 36 to extend past Peyton all the way to Calhan. And this is the chart on the transit focus area. So we can, we have a couple of choices. We can ask the original, the folks that did the original motion and a second, if they'd like to accept that motion as a friendly amendment to their motion, and then we can.
As
treat
second,
it
I
as
would
one.
accept that.
I would do that. I'd also like to know if there are any more amendments.
That'd be great. So in the first case, I think our original motion and seconder is
I'm
accepted.
sorry, we couldn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Councilwoman Avila made the comment to make sure that we keep the floor open for any other comments regarding potential other amendments, and we will do that. So I think for our original motion and our second, we're accepting as a friendly amendment to their motion, the extension of item T3 out to Calhan. And by the way, I appreciate you bringing it up. That's the whole point of having this meeting, is to make sure that we're not missing something. So thank you very much for that. So I think that's accepted in that motion. And now let's keep the floor open. Are there any other recommendations, questions, comments, concerns about the study at large, or really also about any individual project?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I got a question. Jason, what's the longevity of this study? And the only reason I ask is as Teller County grows, and Crook Creek in particular, and we're adding more housing, we're adding more jobs. We're gonna have a lot more traffic going through where Commissioner Stone mentioned 6724 intersection. How long does this study, is this study gonna last, and is there plans to update it periodically, or 5 years down the road we're gonna revisit? What was, I wasn't part of the original concept when this was proposed.
It's a good question. I'm sorry, I don't have a simple answer. As of now, there's no plan that we have to update this or do another tri-county study, just because unlike some of our other regular plans, we don't receive regular funding to do these. This was sort of a one-off, and a lot of different forces had to come together, and a couple of individuals had to go above and beyond, like Wendy Pettit of CDOT Region 2, to make sure that this happened at all. It's certainly not out of the question. I think we would be great to do another one, but as of now, there's no plan. Again, like our other regular documents that we do, they have a federally required planning horizon where we're supposed to plan to a certain year. But with this study, it really came from the member governments and their planning horizons. I mean, it really is sort of a grassroots, sort of member-driven study. So it really is probably variable across all the different member jurisdictions. It's so there's not one for the region. Some folks were clearly talking to us from more of a long-range planning perspective. Others were more focused on their immediate needs. So it's pretty variable across the Tri-County study. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer.
No, I was just curious if it's just a study that's a one-time, which it sounds like.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, for the moment, it is a one-time study, but that does not mean that we can't have a very deliberative conversation in PPACG going forward. I don't know if that would be in the near term or maybe a year from now or something like that. And have a conversation about if we would like to go through a process of periodic updates, for example, or something else. And I think that will just be something we'll have to check on the sentiment of the board members and what their interests would be. So, yes.
Yeah, I would like to say, yes, that's a good idea to say we're going to review this, but the money doesn't drop out of the sky very often. And that's kind of the position we're in now. The money dropped out of the sky because of some really, really hard work by some people to arrange that. And I'm not too sure we're going to have that opportunity in the future. And I believe the study was around 230,000. Is that correct?
250.
250. So $250,000 to do a study is pretty significant amount of money. And that's not something PPACG can take on. It'd have to have somebody else that is funding it for us.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I think the raises a good point there too, that it would be nice if we can have a regular, semi-regular check-in with our jurisdictions that are part of this to find out, what's working, what's not working, how we're doing as far as potential grant applications and implementation. We're happy to figure out how we might make that happen. So
Yeah, thank you. And I think I have a interest in that as well. I mean, whether that culminates in an official position of trying to look for money, for an update to the study, let's say maybe 3 or 5 years from now or something like that. I would also frankly be interested in how the jurisdictions have taken advantage of the study. Have they actually used it to pursue a grant? Was that process successful or not successful? Because there'll be some insights from that, right? If this thing comes in handy for these jurisdictions and we end up with a half dozen, grant applications and 2 of them are successful, we might be able to make an evaluation about, well, you know what, this study maybe was valuable to us or something like this. So I think, but then on the other side of the coin, if the study goes on the shelf and no one submits any grant applications, maybe at that point, it was a great study. We had some insights, but we don't need to update it because it didn't get put to use. So I think those should be part of the conversation as well as we go forward. Other questions? Great question.
Can I make a comment?
Yes,
on
ma'am.
that? I've gone through the study, and as a result of the information that we saw in that study, one of the things I'm going to be talking about in a few minutes. I don't know if they'll hear you up there because I can barely hear you. Oh, sorry. So anyway, I'm Kathy Lowry from the Teller Senior Coalition, and I just wanted to share that we went through this study and noted that one of the areas that we serve was felt to be underserved. So when I talk in a few minutes, I'm going to be talking about how we're creating a special bus route to Cripple Creek and Victor to transport those residents to Woodland Park every Friday. So I'm just letting you know it's already given you some results.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate those comments. Yes, sir.
Brian Johnson, PK Enterprises. I'd just like to thank everybody at PPACG that's involved in getting this study going and putting this study together. It's really refreshing for me to see rural parts within your boundary get some attention. Very much see this as a great stepping stone to solve some pretty critical issues, in my opinion, and very much looking forward to maybe forming public-private relationships with local government to make some of these initiatives become reality.
Outstanding comment. I appreciate that. And I think we're happy to work on something that can help, our rural partners in our PPACG. And I don't know if maybe Commissioner Elsner or somebody else might be able to mention some of the names that work so hard to get that one-time drop of dollars, because, to get that kind of money is no small feat, to be quite frank.
Well, yeah, I think it's CDOT Windy Pettit was probably the prime motivator in trying to tie everything together. And then, of course, PPACG transportation staff sitting there saying, hey, I think we can do this, maybe. So, the idea started with PPACG and then it went to CDOT, and I think Wendy was just absolutely great.
Thank you. That's awesome. I appreciate your mentioning some of the folks that were critical in making this happen. All right, other questions? Good questions. To the study itself directly, we had one friendly amendment to make a modification. Are there any other motions or amendments to the actual document itself?
Just one comment, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
Also, just as we move forward, should we approve this, also want to make sure that everyone understands, and I know most of you probably do, is that this does not define all of the projects that are potentially available within the boundaries of PPACG. Tomorrow, Mayor of Green Mountain Falls may identify a trail issue, a road issue that is not part of this study. That's why it's not a plan. Is that as things come forward, is that there should be no concern that, oh, it's not in the study. Doesn't need to be in the study. This is a slice based upon today, based upon local governments, based upon local input. This is where we are today, and tomorrow we're going to find more. I guarantee you we're going to find more, but it doesn't preclude those from coming forward, from coming to PPACG, from coming to Central Front Range TPR to be addressed and potentially become part of an actual plan.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment, and it is a true statement. So, okay, other comments or questions? And just to make sure, because I can't see any hands up or anything from anybody online, let me just open up the floor to anybody online if they have any comments or questions. Do we have any hands up? Okay, I don't see any. Yes, please. Norm, yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Norm Steen, former Keller County Commissioner. Let me just a comment and then a suggestion. One of the things you learn as a public servant is that sometimes we as public servants get tied into programs and budget lines, and we parse things into very narrow programs. But people who live and people who put us here today don't understand this is a state road, a county road, a federal road. They don't understand that, okay, this is this funding stream, this is that funding stream. And our job as civic servants is to translate all this complexity into how we best serve people who we work for. This study does that. It converts without regard to a funding stream, what people who we work for really need. So that's the comment, that this program, this study is big enough to embrace not only where we are today, but also where we could be, where we want to be. So maybe that leads to a recommendation. This study identifies needs, identifies what is not what we need or don't have. It does not identify projects, as Jason already pointed out. That's not to say that someday down the road, 10 years from now, we could identify a project that fills the bill of a need that this project identified. So in one sense, I think this study does have legs. It's got longevity because it identifies a long-term need without limit. Project can be plugged in one after the other to kind of fill in those gaps. So for me, it's great to see programs outlast people. I think all of us, our counties will outlive us, our cities will outlive us, and we have this narrow window. And more as I look back on my own service to Teller County, realize that this is just a narrow window that we serve in, that we fill the gap where we can. Programs like this provide longevity to things we all care about.
Thank you, Norm. I appreciate that comment. Maybe. One of the things that I've had experienced also in my time in the Department of Defense and working in budgets there is often you would be focused on the budget documents and the programs tied to those budget documents. But we also had an unconstrained requirements list that wasn't tied to budgets. And sometimes you would occasionally find really useful projects in there, some of them smaller, some of them important, but for whatever reason weren't being paid attention to. And you could occasionally pull one of those up from a requirements list without budget allocation into a requirements list with budget allocation, because it might have been small enough in dollars to squeeze in, or it might have been able to be connected to something else or something like that. But if you don't have that list of unconstrained, then you don't know what they are. So I found it useful to have that list when I was working in the Pentagon and working on budgets. So this to me feels very similar to that, by the way. An unconstrained list of requirements, if you will. Whether it's comprehensive or not, right? It's still a list, and it's better than having no list. So, okay, other comments or questions? And especially anybody online, because that's where we were at. And again, I didn't see any hands up, so I think we might be good. If there's anybody online that wishes to speak at all, just please chime in. All right, hearing none, I do not think we have any other comments or questions. We've accepted a friendly amendment to the motion and the second. I think we are at a point to vote. So let's go ahead and proceed with that vote. All those in favor of adopting this, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Wow, there's some very positive ayes there. Any opposed? All right, congratulations. We have the one amendment Great work, everybody. Appreciate all the work and good job to all of you. Let's move on to item number 6B. This is the Unified Planning Work Program update adoption.
Good morning, Danelle Miller, Transportation Planner here at PPACG. I am in the PPACG office. So if you do have any questions or comments, please feel free to interrupt me. Today we have for you the adoption of our update to the Unified Planning Work Program. And I wanted to just start out with a bit of background to provide some context for this item. So under the umbrella of PPACG, our transportation group primarily serves as the metropolitan planning organization for our metropolitan planning area. And the MPO is federally mandated and federally funded. So we really get the bulk of our funding from Federal Transit Administration and the Federal Highways Administration. And those federal planning regulations require us to develop this document, the UPWP, to specify our transportation planning activities that will occur within our MPO boundaries. This document is a 2-year document. However, we generally do a mid-cycle update, and that's what this document is. The update essentially covers some revisions and some clarifications to our planning work. For example, we added some clarification regarding the regional freight study that we intend to undertake. We also added, for example, a small consultant effort that is covering a regional safety education effort that's identifying groups in our area that are doing safety related traffic education efforts. We're actually kicking off that project right now. There were also some minor changes in the document to reflect some guidance from FHWA and FTA, as well as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So this item was originally brought to the committees this summer, and a public comment was held July 12th through August 13th. We did not receive any comments on this, which is not terribly unusual just because the nature of the document doesn't generate a lot of public interest usually. And at this point, really, we're happy to answer any questions, and ultimately we're seeking approval of the UPWP update from the Board of Directors.
Okay, very good. Any other updates, Andy, for this before the board deliberates?
I don't believe so, John, anything? Nope, I think we're good.
Okay, great. I'll just start with a couple of quick questions. I think I know the answers, but if you look at the actual documentation, there are what appears to be the updates that are listed in red. Is the red text the update? Just check.
No, the document that's in your packet is actually the executive summary of the changes. So the full executive summary is the changes that were made to the actual document.
Okay, so in the packet, the items in red do represent the changes.
They do in the table, yes, but the entirety of the executive summary.
Yeah, I mean, I see that, and then some other really minor administrative changes like adding LRTP to the ETIP.
Yes.
And also it looks like there were some corrections to some work element numbers.
Yes.
Okay, great. Are there any questions from any members of the board, either in the room or online, regarding this Unified Planning Working Program update adoption? All right, hearing none, can we just bring up the screen for those online, see if we've got any hands raised? Okay, I don't see any hands raised, so I'm going to work on the assumption there are no comments from anybody that are online either at this point, but if that is not true, please chime in right now. And hearing none, at least for the moment, I'll entertain a motion.
Nancy Henjum online and would move to approve and adopt.
Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate that. Is there a second?
I'll second that. John Graham, Manitou Springs.
Oh, okay. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. One last opportunity for any of the board members to comment or ask questions. Seeing none and hearing none, let's go ahead and proceed with the vote. All those in favor of this update adoption, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? All right,
Aye.
it sounds like that passes unanimously. I'm sorry, there was a comment on, oh, that was an aye. Thank you. That was a delayed aye. All right, thank you so much. All right, I think we are completed with item 6. Let us move on to item number 7. These are our information items, and we'll start with 7A.
If I may, Mr. Chair, just a quick comment.
Yes, please.
Just so everybody's aware, when it comes to the microphones, these are for the benefit of the people online. They're not for the benefit of the people in the room. So for council member Avila's benefit, make sure when you speak, this microphone isn't going to help her hear you. Just make sure you speak up and loudly, and the people online are just going to have to deal with your loud voice. But with the microphones, it would create a feedback loop otherwise. So just be aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Sandy.
Good clarification. Thank you, Commissioner. And before we get to the information items, we kind of structured it so you could hear from our key partners here at Teller County, starting with our service providers that we contract with through our area agency on aging, and then also set aside some time for updates from our jurisdictions as well. Just thought it'd be a good chance for you to hear from them directly as far as key issues. You alluded to that earlier, Mr. Chair, so that's why it's pretty Teller County centric on today's agenda, obviously. I don't know that Ted Borden from Community of Caring is here, is going to make it. Okay, super. But we did invite Kathy Lowry with the Teller Senior Coalition, and with that, we'd be happy to turn it over to Kathy.
Great, thank you. Is this volume good?
It sounds good. I can tell you that there's no wire on this, so you can literally move that microphone closer to you,
Okay, all right,
which
thanks.
makes it easier instead of having to lean forward.
Okay, great, thanks. So anyway, I'm Kathy Lowry. I'm the Executive Director of the Teller Senior Coalition. I've been involved with the coalition since 2015, appointed Executive Director in 2019. I have a passion for serving seniors like most of my staff. First, I wanted to take some time to thank PPACG, the PPACG board, the TPR, commissioners, county representatives. It's probably a list that would go on and on and on. But we've had tremendous support, particularly through COVID. And I just wanted to recognize that we really appreciate it. We've been able to grow, expand our services, which we've needed to do, because I think most of you in Teller County know that from 2010 to 2020, the population of those 65 and over went from 13% to 24%. And that's probably going to continue. So we see that with new seniors coming in for help almost every day. We're on track to help over 1,200 seniors this year with some sort of service. A lot of our service, about half of what we do is transportation. You know, as seniors get older, they get to a point where they're no longer able to drive. We just had a female senior call us the other day. Oh my God, they took my license away. What am I going to do? Well, we were able to step in and get her the transportation she needed. We have 9 vehicles. 4 of them can accommodate wheelchairs, and we actually transport about 40 seniors in wheelchairs. So without our help, they probably would be stuck at home with no way to get to doctor's appointments, get food, etc. So that's a big part of what we do. We're on track to get hopefully a few more vehicles, and we need that because our transportation services is just growing by leaps and bounds. Another big part of what we do is nutrition support. You know, seniors get to a point where it's hard for them to get out of their house to get food. Some of them come out of the hospital, no food in the refrigerator or in the cupboard. So we deliver frozen or shelf-stable meals to seniors, 7 meals once a week. We have another program for low-income seniors where we provide senior food boxes, which is close to a month's worth of staples. And then we maintain a food pantry. On the food pantry, you know, that came about during COVID when seniors were stuck at home, afraid to leave their homes. So we started the food pantry. The community was tremendous in giving us food donations, and we received some FEMA funding. And on the note of FEMA funding, just in August, 4 nonprofits in Teller County, Community Partnership, the Coalition, Aspen Mine Center, and the Divide Pantry, we came together and submitted a grant to FEMA for additional money for food. So all 4 of us are being funded to replenish our food pantries now that, time has passed and we need to do that. So that was a great joint effort that I wanted to highlight in Teller County. We're working together to get those food resources back in our pantry. So I mentioned that we're starting a route to Cripple Creek Victor on Friday, next Friday. So what we're doing is we're going to have a bus that will go to Victor Cripple Creek, pick up seniors, residents who have contacted us to be scheduled for this route, bring them to Woodland Park. They can go to Walmart, post office, bank, whatever they need to do. And then we'll take them back at the end of the day. So we feel that this is going to be great for those residents. They know every Friday I can get the bus, go into Woodland Park. And it also is going to help us because like one day we might be going to Victor to pick up one person on Monday, and then on Tuesday we go pick up somebody else for the same thing. This way we consolidate those trips and realize some efficiencies. And I also want to mention, thanks to the TPR, because we have received funding through the MMOF funds to cover the costs of this type of program. And we'll be looking at doing other routes throughout Teller Park and Western El Paso. Right now, we're focusing on getting seniors the COVID booster. Public Health just informed me yesterday they have the booster, so we're getting the word out to seniors, and we'll be transporting them to get their shots. I'm scheduled for next Monday. Happy about that. In June, knowing that many seniors had been isolated at home, hadn't been seeing their friends or their neighbors or their family, we started social activities. So now we do bingo every other week, coffee and donuts, which seniors are loving. We're also doing trips. On Tuesday, we're taking a busload of seniors to Mueller Park. They're going to bring a picnic, go and just enjoy the beautiful scenery out there. We've got a trip planned to the Heritage Center in Cripple Creek for October. And we're also going to be doing classes for seniors. So this is our way of getting seniors out and getting them some interaction with the community. We have a computer that seniors can come in and use. We'll help them. They need access to a computer. A lot of seniors out here don't have computers or are not able to get internet access. So we've got seniors coming in pretty frequently to use our services, and a lot of them need help with that. So we're there to walk them through whatever they need to do. We have a lending library. We have a lending puzzle program. So there's a lot of things that we're providing to help seniors, get back into their normal activities. I have 3 case managers who meet with seniors and basically sit down with them, understand what their problems are, recommend resources either through the Teller Senior Coalition or possibly Human Services or other agencies. But we definitely are a resource to seniors to deal with whatever issues they may have at that moment. We can install grab bars and railings for seniors who need that to keep their home safe. And we also have a pool of volunteers that will help seniors with such things as yard work, snow shoveling in the winter, and minor home repairs. So that's something new that we started a couple of years ago. For those seniors who are no longer able to keep their homes clean, we can provide a resource to come in and help them with housework or minor cooking or laundry, things like that. And for caregivers caring for loved ones, we can bring in someone to give them a break so they can run to the store, run to the bank, whatever they need to do, or just take a nap. So we have a lot of services for seniors. Again, thanks to PPACG for your resource to help us provide this to our seniors. In our recent survey that we did of seniors, 97% of them would refer us to other seniors. And again, we see that because we're getting new clients all the time. And I would just want to note some of our challenges that we deal with here. Seniors not being able to access the internet, self-service is a big issue. And the other big issue that seniors have been dealing with is social isolation. One thing I forgot to mention is we have a calling program. We have about 80 seniors we call maybe once a month or once a week just to say, hey, how are you doing? Do you need anything? Is there anything we can do for you? Through our wellness calling program, which that helps keep those seniors connected to the community. I did want to mention that we are providing transportation in Eastern Park County. We are trying to, it doesn't make sense that someone may live across the street from someone in Teller to not give that person a ride. So we are hoping to expand the amount of transportation we're providing in Eastern Park. And we are involved in a current study going on to look at transportation in Park County. So we're hoping to be a partner and help as much as we can to help those seniors get the transportation that they need. I did not know there were so many people at this meeting, but I have a one-pager that basically highlights all of our services. And the other piece I have here is a flyer about this route that we're going to be doing to Cripple Creek Victor on Friday. So please help yourself, and I'd be happy to get more of these to anyone who's interested. It's interesting. I'm lucky that I have a very strong staff. I have two key managers, one who oversees transportation, Diana Van Auken, who does a wonderful job. And then Sharon Hahn oversees the remaining client services. Most of our staff at the coalition, most of us are seniors. So, we're interacting and helping, and we sort of understand where our clients are coming from because we know we're kind of approaching that space ourselves. So that's kind of an overview of the coalition. Again, thanks for all the support that we've received. We are in a very good financial shape right now. And we benefited from COVID funding because, seniors were obviously the most at risk, and that helped us get additional funds to accomplish our mission. I have a call at 11:15 with CDOT to get more money from them, so I will have to leave after this. But I'll answer any questions.
Great. First of all, I'll just say as the chair, thank you on behalf of PPACG for all the work you do here in Teller County. It's a great update, and I'm just thrilled to hear that you're doing those periodic call-ins. I just think that's so important. I can say in El Paso County, and of course, big population, so we have a lot of organizations that provide senior services, and I know that they do that as well, but it's just awesome to hear that that's taking place here in Teller County as well. It kind of, without knowing for sure, I've just thought somebody was doing it, but now I know who's doing it.
Yeah.
So I would like to just open the floor if there are any comments or questions from anybody. Yes, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Teller Senior Coalition, really, I kind of view them, they're kind of like the Coast Guard in Teller County. In that the Coast Guard has stuff they do every day that helps keep, shipping safe and people safe. But then when the tide turns, the weather rolls in, there's an old adage out there that everybody else hunkers down while the Coast Guard goes out during a hurricane. And the pandemic was our hurricane. And when that hurricane came, Teller Senior Coalition was one of the few agencies that didn't shut her down and say, we can't have people, we can't help people. They actually said, how can we help more? How can we do more? And they were a bright and shining star for Teller County and for Western Park County and Western El Paso County for still helping people get to where they needed to go for, at a time when food pantries shut down, Teller County Senior Coalition put out the call and they made sure that seniors had the food support that they needed. So I just, publicly among all these groups, I want to thank you for not only doing what you do, but also recognizing how quickly the landscape can change and having the flexibility within your organization to shift and reorient and take care of your people and our people. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was one nice compliment. Okay, I think we had another comment.
Yeah, Jeff Mosier with City of Cripple Creek. I sat on the Department of Human Services team during the pandemic and worked very closely with the folks from TSC. And to let you know, it's already posted on our website. The links are already there for the flyer and the information about the Friday
Yay, thank you.
transportation. So you're good. We took care of it yesterday.
Perfect.
So, but Commissioner Stone is correct. During the pandemic, the contact that TSC actually provided for the seniors, those phone calls and the drive-bys to make sure they were okay and safe. Even those, the reporting to DHS for child abuse went down considerably during the pandemic because there was less contact with the kids, but the reporting on seniors went up considerably. And so having that contact with those seniors and that opportunity for them to make reports if they needed to, or just get that support, whether it was food, transportation, or somebody to talk with. They did an outstanding job, and I can't say enough good things about you guys. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Great. More accolades. So, yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, we have two over here, but the mayor, go ahead. Mayor, go ahead, and then.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to comment and thank Kathy, her staff, and her volunteers, because it takes an army. I served on the board of directors for the coalition probably 8 or 10 years ago, and it has come leaps and bounds further than it was at the time I served. Funding has tripled. The number of cars I see parked out and vehicles providing transportation services have quadrupled, if not more. And I know what an important part that PPACG, Area Agency on Aging, plays in their services. So thank you, Kathy. You've done a fabulous job, and everyone else on your staff. Thank you for the opportunity.
The accolades continue. Jody.
Good morning, all. Yes, Jody Barker with the Area Agency on Aging. And yeah, it has been an absolute pleasure in my time so far with PPAAA to work with Telesenior Coalition as well as the Aspen Mine Center's community of caring. And so since Ted couldn't be here, I thought I'd share a couple of things. A lot of the services have remained the same, but back to the just the go-getter attitude that we see with these two organizations, along with making the outreach calls and that kind of thing. The folks with the Outreach Center in Cripple Creek reached out to every single senior, not just those that they had been providing direct services to. They also went on door knocking, house by house survey early on in COVID in the town of Victor to determine exactly who might need service and who might not. Were they already connected with services, or that be something that they need to be connected to? And so again, a lot of we saw this across not just our region and our state and nationwide, this odd balance of closures of organizations, but ultimately we have seen just the ongoing support of our older adult service organizations who just continue to reach out. Both organizations, including the folks from Park County Senior Coalition, because we have Lake George split right in the middle. Just raise their hands. What can we do? Who do we need to talk to? What connections do we need to make? And so we've seen a lot of that fantastic collaboration. And I tell my staff, I'm big on the C word, collaboration. If it's about collaboration, let's talk about it. Let's see who we need to bring in the room, get to the table, have conversations with. And so I just see that all the time up here, and I'm so appreciative. It makes my job a little bit easier, but at the end of the day, the challenges are still there, but we have great partners to work with to distribute that funding. Both Telesenior Coalition and the Community Outreach Center did access a variety of additional COVID funding while that was still available, and specific to Kathy's comments about the pantry. I'm just tickled to death that there wasn't a pantry before COVID. She called me and she said, and she sends me a picture, we're getting so many donations, we don't have any place to put them. Can I buy some shelves? And I said, yes, buy the shelves. Let's get this going. We've since bought additional shelving units as well as commercial freezer and refrigerator systems so that they can continue to purchase those and get those out to the community. So it's just an ongoing story of well done across the Teller County, and just thanks so much to our representatives that are here, our delegation here from Teller County. They're very supportive. When we received additional FEMA boxes, I said, Kathy, let's call some county commissioners and let's find out how we can get these boxes from the shipping yard in Colorado Springs, which they told us, we'll ship you as many FEMA boxes as you want. These are food boxes, 30-day food boxes, but to only one address. And they selected a shipping company off of I-25 and Garden of the Gods. Which was fine. At least we got them in our region, right? So we reached out to all of our providers and said, how are we going to get these to Teller County, Park County, and the outer reaches of El Paso County? And our county commissioners, city council members, and that kind of thing. You all just stepped up, sent a truck down in a trailer, and brought those back. Also made the additional steps of finding the storage, the interim storage, so that Ted and Kathy could get those distributed through Teller County, and we appreciate that very much. So it's just an ongoing collaboration that we appreciate. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jody. And I appreciate kind of some of those comments about really a collaboration with a lot of organizations to help get to an outcome that's meaningful. That's awesome. Thank you. And I think Commissioner Elsner, you had some comments as well.
Yeah, I just want to thank the Teller County people for helping Park County. Park County is a very large county. I don't know. When I go down to testify at the state capitol on bills or go down to work on things, they always say, whoa, you came all the way from Park County. Well, it takes me less time to get from my house in Park County to the state capitol than it takes me to get from my house in Park County to the county seat. So, and that's one of those things you take a look at. Woodland Park is really close to Lake George. And my guess is Lake George people, it takes them less time to get to Colorado Springs than it takes them to get to Fairplay. So, being able to have all these organizations work together across county lines means an awful lot for Park County, because we do have a lot of trouble with just getting there. I really appreciate the help you've given us.
Thank you.
Outstanding. Other comments, questions? And I guess I need to add accolades at this point. And anybody online, don't see a hand up. But if there's anybody online that would like to make some comments with regard to item 7A, please just chime in. Okay, I don't see any. So once again, to Kathy and to Ted, who's not here, just thanks to both of them and your organizations for the work you're doing on behalf of Teller and Park County citizens. That's awesome. And by the way, it is really nice to hear this. So coming up here, I think afforded us the opportunity to actually hear that in person. And I like that as well. So, okay, super. Let's move on then to item 7B. Updates from Teller County and the cities of Woodland Park, Cripple Creek, and Victor. Who would like to start? How would you like to proceed?
Okay, so I'll go first, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Commissioner Stone, please.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to share what's going on in Teller County with the rest of the board. A lot of times, even when I drive down the hill, I feel like, even in my own mind, I get pretty Colorado Springs centric with my thinking, because we're thinking about major roads and major thoroughfares. Anyway, welcome to Divide. As Commissioner Campbell stated earlier, this Teller County Sheriff's Office was opened a year ago. If you could see what it replaced, you would be amazed that they could even do the job prior, because it was literally a leftover firehouse with 2 bay doors where they tried to have nearly 100 service officers work out of. And actually, it's the very, very far end little piece of this building. They kept it and built onto it. All of this over here was about $7.2 million. We did pay cash for it. And what's going on here in the immediate future is that You're sitting in the major growth area for Teller County. Woodland Park is limited because as you notice with the beautiful drive up, all those trees around you, actually, most of those trees belong to the United States Forest Service. So they're surrounded by, by federal land. So their opportunities for expansion are somewhat limited, although they do still have some room for growth. But up here in Divide, it's mostly private in the area that you are. There's a couple major developers that were in the room earlier. I think they've left already, but we own a wastewater treatment plant here in Divide. The county does. I'm not sure we want to own it, but we do own it. And we are currently working on a major expansion of that wastewater treatment plant because it is at capacity. And that capacity is a cork in the potential development of the area. The part of the necessity of increasing the size of that wastewater treatment plant is because Teller County is currently working on plans which have yet to have any curtain pulled back on yet, but we have a desire to build a county central service center located here in Divide. As you may be aware, Divide is kind of centrally located throughout the county. We currently have all of our county offices that are spread out throughout the county, starting from Cripple Creek up here in Divide. We have our public health services and our public works are located out of here. And then you go down to Woodland Park. We rent a lot of buildings in Woodland Park that provide everything from DMV services to our DHS, our planning and building departments are in Woodland Park. And there are times when you might need the assessor and you need the building department, and they are 27 miles away from each other. It can make what should be a very quick stop to get a couple things taken care of into a half-a-day project just to get there. So expanding this wastewater treatment plant will allow us to hopefully in the area, just this direction here from where we are is to look at a consolidated county service center. But when we do that, that's going to create some significant transportation issues here within Divide, because also the expansion of the wastewater treatment is also, there are PUDs in existence waiting on sewer hookups within this area. They've already been approved 15, 20 years ago. And once we have that expanded, the water is already available. The sewer was not, so we're taking care of that. But if the city puts our service center in here and then these developers are able to come in and help us out with some of our specific housing needs and also the commercial needs that will go along with those housing needs, you're going to see some significant changes in Divide, I would say, over the next 10 to 20 years, and probably some significant within the next 5 to 10. So a lot of that's going to change as we move forward. I don't want to speak specifically about the communities. I'll let those representatives talk about what's going on in their communities, but that's kind of the big thing that's going on in the county right now. Of course, we're always concerned about getting people to places safely as as these crushes of cars come up the pass. It does cause significant impacts, both economic, which are good, and then the traffic and the things that Park County experiences from 285. We share some of those experiences here on Highway 24, as everybody who's from here knows. But here in 2 weeks, it's officially leaf peeping season. And I'm sure Commissioner Elsner is looking forward to that in Park County as well. We do invite, of course, everyone to come up. It's probably the most amazing time of year up here in the high country. And, the Teller 1, Highway 67 around to Teller 1 and back up to 24 might be one of the most beautiful Aspen loops that you can go on. Not to say that Guanella Pass isn't a great place to go, or up over Hoosier Pass, because those are wonderful also. If you do want to go to those, just make sure you take Highway 285 to get there. Anyway, I'll turn it over to my associates and partners in the cities at this point. Also, I do want to mention, after this meeting is over, there's, like I said, there is some food that's been brought up by PPACG, but also if anybody would like a tour of the building, so you can see what this facility is all about. It houses more than just the sheriff's department, but will certainly be available to take on a tour of the facility.
Great, thank you very much. I intend on taking it. If you're offering a tour, I'm taking the tour. So, yeah, and I think it's unfortunate a little bit, but the Colorado Springs Regional Chambers decided to do their DC fly-in right smack dab in the middle of when the Aspens are changing. I think they need to pick a different week than that week. but it is what it is. I do have, I see Nancy Hengem has her hand up, but one quick question before we ask what question she has is, you know, I'm certainly well aware of how many miles of roads and how many bridges El Paso County has a jurisdiction over and has to maintain, but what is that in Teller?
In Teller, 583 miles of road, of which 500 of them approximately are unpaved.
Okay.
And which sounds like a lot, but you should be in Park County.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to give you that, we've got 1,620 miles of roads and about 112 are paved.
Okay, that's awesome. And I guess for everybody's benefit, it's a 4,200 lane miles of roads in El Paso County, about half of which are paved. So to give us a sense of the number of miles. Just a second, Roland, I had Nancy, her hand up, and then we'll get to you. So Nancy, go ahead.
Well, hi, I just want to say hello, Commissioner Stone. Thank you so much for your words. And I really genuinely am sorry that I'm not there physically with you. I do recall in a previous life working with 43 counties in the state, and so much concentration on the urban areas, and trying to get out into the counties and understand and appreciate and taking the time to be in your area where life happens for you. So I really am sorry that I'm not there today. And I'm just going to ask you, Eric, if the next time I'm up there, if I could get appreciate your words.
Absolutely, anytime.
Outstanding.
Thanks so much.
Yes, Roland.
Mayor Pro Tem Longardi, what's the date of that tour for the Aspen League?
It's scheduled from 5 p.m. on Friday, the 21st until Sunday about sunset, I believe, and then it's over. That's it, starting and it ends, and that's it.
I have a sneaking suspicion he just made that up. I'm sorry, Roland, go ahead. What was that?
I said, thank you for that clarification.
All right, that's outstanding. You know, I don't know if this happens. I guess I just got to ask the question. It's if you will, it's a follow-up on the roads question. But do our Department of Public Works between Park and Teller and El Paso work a lot together? I know they do in some ways, but you know, I can tell you one of the things that El Paso is doing is experimenting with different kinds of technologies to try to figure out how to be more cost effective, particularly at maintaining unpaved roads, about maintaining gravel roads. And I don't know if we've ever shared some of the innovation that we're trying with our partnership counties or not. One of them happens to be a thing called a BOMAG machine, which is a device from Europe that actually pulls up the top 6 inches, throws it into a big hopper, throws all the stone around, pulls out some of the dust, puts in a little bit of mag chloride, then drops it back down, and then you have to roll it afterwards. But some of our preliminary discoveries, you know, that in order to do like dust mitigation, it's pretty common to have to go over a road a lot. But this thing seems to be working on reducing our touch points to somewhere around 6 months. And that, I think, is probably would be much less frequently than maybe what you all have to put up with. But I'm just asking the question. I don't know how much we cooperate.
Well, the problem is, you know, Park County's budget for our 1,600 miles of road is just a little over 5 million. So that piece of equipment wouldn't really do much, but I would be more than happy to volunteer some Park County roads for you to test on.
I bet you would.
That's just what I was going to say, is that, you know, if you guys need some test roads to put that on, we've got some up here in Teller. But just to give you an idea, though, you know, and I know that Commissioner Elsner struggles with this also, just because, you know, the different scales of budgets, you know, what we deal with. And obviously, part of that scale is the number of road miles, lane miles that you have in your county, and the population you have to serve, and the type of traffic that hits those roads are dramatically different in different scales. But, you know, we just put a brand new grader on the road about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that we're really excited to get, because we'd ordered it a long time ago, and it finally came in because of supply chain issues. It's $285,000 investment, and it replaced a piece of equipment that was still on the road, still being maintained. that we purchased in 1985.
Wow.
So it's, I was just graduating high school about the time that we bought that grader, and, our staff kept it running, kept it rolling. I think that's probably a little bit of perhaps the difference between some of the small counties and the big counties is that, we use a lot of Band-Aids and baling wire sometimes to keep these things on the road, keep them going for as long as we possibly can because of the tremendous expense to replace heavy equipment.
Yes, Mayor.
I think the town of Green Mountain Falls would be interested in any kind of cooperative road type maintenance efforts as well, because most of our roads are the gravel type roads, but we also are about a 60-degree angle, it seems like. And we get some severe washouts on a regular basis.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. And I know that we do have those conversations from time to time. I just don't know how much our Department of Public Works interacts with the town of Green Mountain Falls. I know there are touch points and it does happen from time to time. And I know from time to time, we lend a hand a little bit here and a little bit there. But we should be always, I think we should just always be having the conversation. There may or may not be opportunities for us to help out Green Mountain Falls, but I know from time to time we do a little bit of that.
Even if we could set up a regular telecon between the public works departments, that would be great.
Okay. Thank you very much for the update, Commissioner Stone. And let's see, we have the cities of Woodland Park, Cripple Creek, and Victor as well. So we would like to get started.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, everyone. I'd just like to share some things. I have a couple of notes, some from our manager to share with you. Number one is, of course, we're still interested in making the reliever route work and are looking to local partners to help us find a grant match to get that phase 1 corridor study done next year. We are seeing just small growth this year in our sales tax revenues, which is for a city, a larger part of our budgets, and expect the same next year. It's interesting, of course, during COVID, we had a surge because as a small community, our code provides for taxing of groceries. And so that's a major source, and because we don't have a very large tax base, that's typical of a small community. But we are seeing that not a downturn, but a slowdown in what our projections were. We continue to be challenged with hiring, of course, everyone is. Working with Core Electric, and we're going to have an electric vehicle charging station located in Woodland Park, a second one, through a grant with Core Electric, which is a rural provider made to the state. We're looking for a grant analyst as far as those personnel issues. If anyone knows a grant analyst and writer, we have decided as a council to add that staff position, and we're not having a lot of success in finding one. Let's see, and the biggest focus on that is more of those infrastructure packages that we're seeing that have come from the Fed as of recent. Another thing I'd like to share is we're still moving forward and working with our utilities. The city owns the water and sewer utilities in Woodland Park, and we are still moving forward with negotiations with the Boy Scout camp, which is on a portion of Rampart Range Road. It branches off to where you go to the reservoir to build a new reservoir for expanded capacity of storage for our water system. We're also pursuing the purchase of additional 2 shares of primary water shares of water so that we can take water out of the system. Down in the southeast part of the state is where these rights are located. We have a couple of sources down there that are really good partners in acquisition of water rights to help, because that's another constraint other than just the national forest being around our city, is providing water to development. So, and to our current users, of course, both commercial, residential, multifamily. One of the biggest things that we've experienced over the last couple of summers is cell service on weekends, particularly. And this is directly related to that traffic down our 24 corridor in town. it seems that not only them, but other activities are eating up all of our bandwidth for cell coverage. So when we had the Salute to American Veterans Rally on August 19th and 20th, the commissioners and our city staff worked together to entice and encourage Verizon to come up with some solutions for that. And the short-term solution for that weekend and beyond was a portable tower that's actually located behind City Hall in the parking lots in Woodland Park. The long-term plan is they have committed to identify a location and put in a permanent tower somewhere in town to kind of pick up that load, because we're seeing we could get better service rurally than we could in town. So that's the long-range plan, but in the short run, they're leaving that portable tower with an electric generator instead of the noisy one that we had for a while. Imagine the calls from citizens. And so that's kind of our solution to that challenge we've had for cell service in our specific area of the county. We're doing well. We're starting budget season, as most people are, and it's not bleak. We're looking okay and moving forward. Thank you so much. And again, I want to recognize Teller Senior Coalition and the Aspen Line Center. They do great work, and we're all so grateful for that. Thank you
Great.
for the opportunity, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll just echo the kind of the things that we're seeing in El Paso County as well is an economic slowdown compared amazingly to the 2 COVID years where the economy, our revenues went way up during those 2 years. And we still are seeing growth this year, but it is not on the same scale. So it sounds like we'll probably all have similar connections like that. On the question about a grant writer, I'll just ask Andy. I think we were working on something like that maybe provides some assistance to our partners with PPACG. You want to comment to that a little bit?
We are, and thanks to OEDIT, they are about to start pushing money out to all the COGs across the state. There's about 14 of us. For us to be able to hire a grant, we're calling it a grant navigator position, but to help our local jurisdictions be able to hunt down grant opportunities, especially IIJA federal grant announcements that are going to be coming out over the next 5 years. But having somebody dedicated to that specifically to track down NOFAs, the notices of funding opportunities when those come out, and working with our local communities, especially the smaller ones, the larger city and El Paso County maybe don't need as much help in that area, but most of our other jurisdictions do. And to take a project through all the way from scoping it out and identifying when the NOFAs are coming down to actually putting the grant together and getting that submitted. That's ideally what this position is going to do. So we're waiting on OEDIT for the final paperwork and getting an understanding as to when the funding is going to flow, but it enables us to either hire a position on staff, or my preference would be to get a contractor on board, because I think the workload is going to flow. It's going to kind of ebb and flow a little bit. It's not going to be constant as we get this in place. But more to come. It's been a little bit slow moving. OEDIT started this a couple of months ago. They keep apologizing for it taking so long, so I don't know exactly when this is going to be in place, but I'm concerned about the same issues within the pipeline of trying to find a really good person that understands public sector needs and understands our local jurisdictions and what our needs might be, then how to navigate federal programs. It's going to be tough trying to find somebody out there. So we will need to kind of partner and figure out what kind of resources are out there.
Great.
Administration part of that. Grant administration?
Potentially, yes, depending what the final scope looks like from OEDIT. There's been a lot of back and forth on that as far as how much this person ought to take on versus working with DOLA regional managers versus working with our local jurisdictional reps. So I think that's still kind of to be determined as to who's going to do what.
I can say that, in my conversations with Andy about this, it was predominantly about helping the members of PPACG find grants, because we just worry about lots of opportunities out there that don't ever get discovered. And sometimes that inability to discover is you just don't have enough bandwidth to find it. So that was the primary purpose. But what I would be interested in making sure that we do is that all of the members of PPACG continue to communicate with Andy. Because who knows, maybe there's an expansion of that generalized idea. But if not, if we can't get there, certainly at least helping you find opportunities is part of that plan.
Yeah,
And-
and I think our thinking is also exploring and looking, but I see a great partnership there with you all from that perspective. But I still see, reference your inquiry, there's still that management, there's still identifying need, those kinds of things that a grant management person on staff at the city would be very beneficial in many different aspects. So I welcome the opportunity to partner, and we'll pass that along to our staff and share that with our council. Thank you for that.
Okay, great. And a couple of other comments that you made also. We are all suffering from hiring challenges. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, please. We have someone online. Oh, thank you. Nancy, please go ahead. You had a question or comment? Oh, it might be the hand is up and from a previous. I think she just waved us off.
In the PPACG conference room, it looks like somebody got.
Ah, great. Thank you. So let's take whoever has the comment from the PPACG conference room. Please go ahead.
Hey, this is Mayor Thompson. So I just wanted to kind of address the grant thing.
It looks like you're not able to hear you on this end.
Is that better?
Do you hear us?
Am I mute? I'm not muted. Okay.
You're not coming through.
Yeah, we're not
Okay.
hearing you. If you can hear us, just wave at us so that we know that you can hear. Okay, you're hearing us.
Right.
We're not hearing you at this point.
Okay.
Is our microphone not working?
It was working earlier. Okay.
So you guys, can you
I'll
not hear me?
text.
Okay, so Nancy said she could hear Mayor Thompson.
Words online, I can hear Mayor Thompson.
Okay, well,
Okay.
Nancy, you can be my.
So it looks like
my
we have a local
go-between.
building issue here. I don't know if we can hear Nancy at all or not.
Do you want me to
So-
translate for you, Sharon? You
My
want
apologies, but I don't think we can hear you either. And it's probably
Nancy, you're
a building
getting
issue
out
here.
verbally.
The other choice is to put it into chat to make sure we get your question.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
What do you want to ask?
My concern, my comment is
It looks like they're going to go ahead and work on getting that into chat. We'll stand by for that.
on the grant writer.
But the point that I was going to make, and you probably all have a good relationship with them, but the Pikes Peak
My
Workforce
comment on
Center,
the grant writer.
they will
is that
actually
grant
support
writer
public
needs to be
agencies
able
in
to
hiring
apply for the grant
processes
and
as
to be
well.
necessary for it to
So
release.
it's more than just helping the community at large.
I think our chamber chair, executive director is part of that and on that board. So
Yeah.
I'll reach out to her as well.
Yeah, when I was chair of the Workforce Center Board, we actually occasionally held meetings up here in Woodland Park. And also went to some of the hiring events here in Woodland Park. So I know that they do support Woodland Park events. So I just would offer that. If you haven't reached out to them recently, just see if they can help out at all.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. And then with regard to cell service, I don't know what's going on, but it seems like cell service is degrading
Agreed.
across our community, not getting better.
I agree.
I used to be able to take cell calls in my driveway in my house, and now I can't. And there's parts of my commute into work that no longer have cell service yet, but when I started 5 years ago, I could. And I just find that fascinating, that it feels to me like cell service is actually degrading, not getting better.
I would agree with that. Maybe it has something, because this is what we experienced. Maybe it has something to do with the growth of population in general in all of our area. That's maybe eating up what we thought was, taking the capacity of what we thought might work and service for a long time. And maybe they fell behind the eight ball, those
Yeah.
providers. Just a thought.
Yeah, it could be. The other one that's amazing to me is, sometimes we see these internet providers telling us that they have full coverage. We see this, for example, in the highly populated areas of El Paso County. But then when you actually parse that out a little more carefully, you find entire areas that don't have internet. They're still using DSL, and this is in places with a lot of people. I know.
GSL was wonderful compared to what we had to market.
Must be Houston.
Yes, please.
So it looks like they put the comment on the chat, so I'll read it out loud for the benefit of everyone. It says, comment on the grant writer needs to be able to apply for and administer the grant for it to truly be helpful, is the comment.
Okay, thank you.
Agreed.
And thank you for putting that in chat. So everybody heard that here in the room up here in Teller, so thank you for that comment. Okay, so I don't know what to do about the cell service. I know that we've been chasing grants to improve cell service, which I think is additions of towers in places that you wouldn't think you would need it. And that's in Colorado Springs.
Another thought, you brought something to mind by stating that we the city owns a fiber line that comes up from the Springs and terminates at Walmart. The city and the council and staff are working with a consultant, HR Green, to bring that in and the infrastructure, either underground or overhead, mostly underground, to bring those into all of the city's facilities, which are really, interestingly enough, staggered around the town in strategic locations where that we could have that accessible to providers. So we're working on getting better internet service opportunities for our citizenry as well. And hopefully it will help the county. I know there's other fiber that went up the past, but former Commissioner Steen was very involved in a study and work in this. This is a passion for him, I know. And so we're seeing some change and some things happening, and the council's committed to this. And we're also looking to apply for some grants to help with that funding as well. So that was one item I forgot to share that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, thank you. And this may be obvious to those that live in the area here, but I think it was a couple years ago, just before COVID, CDOT ran fiber up Youth Pass, and then El Paso County took advantage of that trench that was dug and also installed their own fiber. So El Paso County has fiber available. Part of what we were hoping to do was that could be put to use for Green Mountain Falls, but Green Mountain Falls or somebody in the area there or some provider that you could find that would be willing to support Green Mountain Falls would have to do the last mile. But we have the fiber available for you to access. And that fiber that was installed was helpful for Manitou Springs to do a fiber extension into Manitou Springs, because to my amazement, just a few years ago, you can correct me if I have this wrong, John, but just a few years ago, major parts of Manitou Springs didn't have broadband. So is that accurate?
That is accurate, yes.
Yeah. So there are efforts ongoing to try and help out communities. El Paso County is doing a bunch of things, but I'm hoping that we can get more people to take advantage of that fiber that has recently gone up Youth Pass.
Yeah, if there's a point of contact that we can contact from Green Mountain Falls and the.
Yes, it's our IT director, Jeff Eckert. And we are also in the process of working with some internet providers about providing broadband service up highway, is it 94? Up Highway 94. I don't know if it gets all the way out to Calhan. The private company has to deliver the last mile. And so there's always kind of this interaction between a public agency and a private company. But the El Paso County does have a broadband master plan. And the goal of it is 100% broadband coverage in El Paso County. So, and we have several initiatives underway trying to get us there. So, okay, great. Thank you for those comments.
My pleasure.
All right, Cripple Creek and Victor. Let's see who we have for representatives. So please go ahead.
Frank Salvatore, City Administrator, Cripple Creek.
Okay.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm gonna try to keep my comments under 2 hours.
Pull your slides up here.
Yeah, my slide presentation. Okay.
Wow.
This is not part of my presentation.
I just turned it off.
Sounds like an invasion.
Sorry about that.
I guess I'll proceed.
Okay.
A little bit about Cripple Creek for those. We're not in that good a shape as far as financially. What happened to Cripple Creek during COVID is the casinos had to shut down. And that put the whammy to the city. And then what's happened since, the casinos have learned that if they keep the spacing between their devices, that actually keeps people on the devices longer. So they reduce the number of devices, which is where Cripple Creek gets most of its funding. So they lost 25% of the funding between 2019 and 2020 because devices were taken off the floor. And then when they reopened, of course, they haven't increase the devices back. So we're still about 22% underfunded on devices. So one of the major, that's dealing with the funding. Our major problem in Cripple Creek is housing and infrastructure. You know, at one time, Cripple Creek, I'm told, had 60,000 people living in Cripple Creek. And at one time it was supposed to be the capital of Colorado. So we will welcome that back anytime at Cripple Creek, capital of Colorado. But so there's a lot of platted lots, but a lot of those lots have a water line running to them. And of course that is no longer in service. So a lot of lots in town, but there's no infrastructure. So we've hired an engineering firm with a grant writer. We've applied through DOLA and the state revolving fund for infrastructure improvements. Our plan is to try to put in the infrastructure so that maybe we get developers to come in and build housing. We do have 2 developers looking at us that are looking at apartment complexes and townhomes and single family residential. So that will all be good, but we're looking in 2024 before we could ever, if we get the grants and loans, before we could ever actually put pipe in the ground. So it's a long process. It's just a little bit, we did find, or I went out on the web, we did find a grant writer as a consultant, and she has come in, met with all of our staff, great ideas, different departments. And she's currently putting a matrix together for me. So I will know where the grants are, how much, if there's matches, who to apply through, but I'm not sharing that with anybody. Just to let you know. So there's no reason to ask. I will not be sharing that information or his or her name. You already said her. Oh, I'm sorry, Dad's gone. I messed up. So that's our major focus right now. Just to give you a little hint, the mine has over 400 personnel. Only about 44 of them live in Cripple Creek. Everybody else commutes. The majority of the city staff commutes. I'm not sure about county, but if we could get even a portion of the people that are commuting to live in Cripple Creek, we could double the size of the community like that. We have 1,200 people living in the community, so 500 homes, we would already double the size of the community. So that's our priority. A little bit on jobs. We, of course, don't understand everybody's having. We have not had a police application for 2 years. We have 14 sworn positions. We have 6 officers. If it wasn't for the county and the gaming commission backing up our officers, we would be in dire straits because we're a 24/7 community. For a small town, we don't roll in the sidewalks. The casinos are open 24/7. So you have to have police service 24/7 and dispatch. So anyway, that's kind of our major issue right now. We do agree with the commissioner and on the 2767 intersection out here. If Cripple Creek grows, and when it grows, we're gonna even have worse problems at this intersection. Something that's going on right now, Full House, of course, has started a hotel expansion, which is supposed to open next June, July, 300+ room hotel, adding onto the casino. They're going to be hiring 300 people. We don't know where they're going to put those 300 people. that they hire, but that's an issue. Triple Crown is also planning a hotel expansion of 100+ rooms, and I think they're going to run into the same issue, hiring the people and where they're going to live. They're supposed to start or break ground hopefully next year. So 2 major projects that'll be happening within the next year. Full House is going full. They've got all the steel up. They're having a steel raising party, I guess you want to call it.
Last beam.
The last beam, yeah, later this month. So that's a good thing. You asked about the Aspen. We're starting the Aspen tour. It's not this weekend, it's next weekend. Goes for 2 weeks.
Roland writing that down.
So this weekend is Mount Pisgah Speaks. That's the cemetery. You can come out and people actually dress in old attire and they actually talk like the person that's in the grave beside them. They'll dress in that attire and talk like they're that person. Now, I'm looking forward to this. I've only been in Cripple Creek for 6 months as a city administrator. So I'm looking forward to Mount Pisgah Speaks. And the Aspen tours, we are bringing back Ice Fest. I think we need something that helps us during the wintertime. We had to stop most of the festivals during the 2020. So Jeff is currently working to bring Ice Fest. All the casinos and the retailers are back online, helping us bring that back probably in February. Just a brief, and Jeff probably is going to hit me for bringing this up. We're also talking to Ice Castles. I think they've been in parts of Colorado. They're coming next week to look at Cripple Creek. That's a 2 to 3 month event that they build big ice castles. And that would really help Cripple Creek if we can swing that. So we'll be working on that in the next few weeks. I guess that's about it. Infrastructure.
Yeah, thank you for your input. I've got a suggestion on one item, but before I get to that, you should think big and just go straight to ice palaces. Okay, go big, go big, go big. The other one, though, I thought that would be maybe worthwhile. I mean, we're all suffering from housing shortages, but like in a larger community like us, there's ways to figure out how to somewhat absorb it somehow, one way or another. But in a community like Cripple Creek, you can tell me if I say this incorrectly. You've got much more limit as to how to absorb that. It either is or isn't. It's kind of this pretty straightforward question. What I don't know, maybe your predecessor had done this, but I would encourage you to go meet with the Housing and Building Association down in Colorado Springs, the HBA. The executive director is Renee Zentz, and the government relations director is Marlon Novak. And they, they have, I don't know what the number is, 20 or 30 builders that are members. It's a big number, and they're all local companies. They're all companies that care about our community instead of some big nationwide builder that will jump in, try to make some money and then leave. These are people that live here. So you may, it may be that Cripple Creek is already deeply involved in talking to them, and if you are, that's great. But if not, I would definitely do that. And in your new position, I would definitely go down there and just get to know them. And maybe there's an opportunity to encourage one of them to say, "Hey, we got lots up here. All you got to do is buy them and go," because they are having trouble finding lots in El Paso County. We've got the land development that's got to take place. So I just offer that as an idea, and I appreciate your update. Any other comments or questions for Cripple Creek?
Just one other, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
We're currently fighting a battle with the legislature, with the Joint Budget Committee in regards to allocation of gaming funds. For those who aren't aware, there's a division in gaming funds between what's called limited gaming, which is that which created gaming in Colorado, and extended gaming, which extended gaming was the initiative that voters approved and then local voters then approved to extend hours, bring in a few new games, and go to 24 hours. And the difference between them is limited gaming funds has a certain formula for distribution to cities, counties, and then extended gaming tax revenues by voter approval goes to History Colorado and community colleges in the state. So we're working with them, hopefully to come up with a new formula that honors and respects what the voters voted for, because the current formula does not do that. They just kind of, what they did was they drew a line back in 2009 and said, any growth in gaming is due to extended gaming, due to the extended hours, what they approved, except we're going to allow you to grow 3% in your revenues, and the rest goes to History Colorado, the rest goes to community colleges. But as he mentioned, we're getting the third largest hotel in the Pikes Peak region built in Cripple Creek. And under their current formula, they will tell you that the growth in gaming came from being open from 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. and from table games that they don't even have in Cripple Creek because they've never utilized them. The new games that, whether it be Baccarat or Pai Gow, things that you, like I said, you don't see them there. So they put a cap on what the revenues are, but Teller County and the city of Cripple Creek, it's all the impacts. So we're looking for a fix to that, number one. So it'll be intellectually honest and honors what the voters voted for. But then the second part that he brought up was that the pandemic revealed to casinos a way for them to make more money, which was, had any casino manager come to their ownership group and said, I've got a great idea. We're going to put less machines on the floor. We're going to put more space in between everything, and we're just going to make tons more money. Reality is they are making tons more money. If you look at the headlines, the gaming revenues are higher than they've ever been. They're making more money per machine. The problem, as identified by the city administrator, is that the cities, their primary revenue source is a tax on the individual machines that are on the floor. So we are going to be seeking a legislative and possibly a constitutional fix for the limited gaming formula, which currently gives 78% of that revenue to the state, because the formula that was created back in the early 90s doesn't work because of what was discovered by the casinos. And it's not just in Cripple Creek, this is discovered across the gaming world, is that, you know what, if you do fewer machines and you separate them, because people will spend more time in front of that one machine, something which would have never been thought to be true, but it was because it was forced by the pandemic. So we're going to be looking at seeking the support of PPACG legislatively on a potentially a constitutional initiative that would have to go back to the voters, which would change that formula so that we can handle the impacts. And it's not just here. When you look at Gilpin County, and if everybody's been to Gilpin County, been to Blackhawk, 30-story hotels, 1,000 hotel rooms in Monarch, I think at the Monarch Resort. There are thousands of hotel rooms, and the gaming division will tell you that the revenue that came from all those hotel rooms is due to them being open from 2 to 8, 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. And thus the local governments don't, we get the impact but none of the revenue. And that needs to change in order for Cripple Creek to be able to put pipes in the ground to handle the need for housing for all of the new employees that's going to come from this expansion. You think about 400 employees and those homes would double the size of Cripple Creek if they had the infrastructure to build those homes. And so it's really critical for the city of Cripple Creek. It's not as critical for the county, although we do feel the impacts. I do believe it is a critical issue for the city of Cripple Creek, and we're going to ask the support of PPACG as we move forward with that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad that you'll have an engagement with the legislative committee and perhaps ultimately then the entire board. Don't know what that means exactly yet, but I'm sure that you'll be making those proposals. I will make one other point. I just think it's amazing that a consideration over an industry, in this case, the gaming industry, is a constitutional issue instead of a statutory issue. That just makes no sense to me. Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to comment to that. I saw you raise your hand.
Just
so.
one other comment.
Yeah.
A lot of people think because sports betting is now legal in Colorado that the cities we get none of that. All of that money at the last moment in that legislation was swept to a water fund. So, and now that water fund is so big, I don't know what they're going to do with all the money. Money's still going into it. And the cities and the counties get nothing from sports betting, even though if it wasn't for the cities and the counties, there wouldn't be sports betting. But that's another thing that the legislature did that
Maybe you can get them to provide water infrastructure for all those empty lots.
That would work.
Just thinking out loud. So, okay, thank you for those updates. Are there any other questions for Cripple Creek? Interesting comments. Yes,
Just,
Dave.
2 questions. One, how much do you pay your police officers?
We don't compete with El Paso and Colorado
Okay, so it's
Springs.
lower pay
We
rate.
try to
Is that
compete,
part of
we
the-
try to stay with the sheriff's office up here in Woodland Park. But again, we don't have the funds.
Yeah.
Even if we wanted to pay what El Paso County is paying. And of course, they're upside down too. I think they're 300 positions or something.
Well, we have
We're
a
about
shortage, yeah.
60 positions
60.
short
In El Paso
And
County.
the city's about 100. And then as far as funding for infrastructure for lots, are there any metro districts up there in Cripple Creek?
No.
Have developers brought that up as a possible?
Not at the time. No, we've got 2 developers that will probably bring it up,
Okay,
which I would be open to. I don't know about the council, but
because
We're-
that's
we're
how a
open to
lot, that's how a lot of things get done
Yes.
in El Paso County and Colorado Springs.
yes.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Appreciate, Dave, your comments. Or I don't see anything else. Okay, thank you. And we have Victor, who's here
Mr. Chair, I
representing
don't
Victor.
think Victor is here. I know they've had some transition with the mayor, and I don't see the city manager.
Yeah, they're actually swearing in a new mayor tomorrow night, I believe, which I know a lot of us will be there to help support them. Victor, they have, their funding challenges is that their revenue stream is that they have one major customer. And they sell water to the mine. And that's where a big part of their revenue streams come from. I guess the biggest change that's happening in Victor right now is they've embraced this idea of becoming a destination. If you haven't been to Victor recently, you really need to go. They're just a marvelous collection of little eclectic kind of B&Bs and some of the renovation going on in that wonderful historic downtown area. And so they're filling a gap, I think, for events that Cripple Creek used to do prior to the pandemic. I know that Cripple Creek's trying to build some of their events back, but Victor is really embracing events to get people to come there. As you're coming out for leaf peeping, make sure that you include Victor as part of your loop because they're doing some tremendous things there in regards to that. So,
Great, thank you. And I
speaking of
mean,
the gaming industry, I guess I better take this.
I mean, Victor in its own respect is a pretty charming little place and there's cool tourist things in Victor. And I'll just make the point, but I know that some of you participated in this for the Pikes Peak Outdoor Recreation Alliance. They did receive some funding to think a little bit more deeply about how to get the Pike National Forest and in particular the area around Pikes Peak to be more useful for different types of outdoor recreation activities, while at the same time remaining sensitive to the ecology of the mountain. Because I can tell you, this is just something that I've shared with some of you, but just to share it with others. Being an expedition mountaineer and climbing some major mountains around the world, most of these mountains have many, many trails to the peak of one measure or another. And we have a bar trail, which is overused and not enough other ways on the mountain to make it to the peak or to access ring the peak or whatever it is. So, I have a design that has an alternate start and then ultimately connects with Bar Trail. That design includes a Victor and Cripple Creek access and has other access points as well, a total of 8 start points for the mountain, which would allow the mountain to look more like the kinds of mountains that you see when people want to do climbing. But having said all that, the Outdoor Recreation Alliance does have grant money now to think strategically about the mountain and how to make better use of it from a tourism point of view. And also how to, that would also include making sure we protect the watershed and the ecology of the mountain, because those are all important things. We all rely on that mountain for so many different ways. And that design also includes an access point for Green Mountain Falls. So I just wanted to bring that up. I just feel like we are insufficiently using the mountain, and with a gigantic population center next to it, if you don't design it up front to accommodate the large population, you get social trails, and those social trails do whatever they do. Harm a part of the mountain that shouldn't be harmed or whatever it is. It's better to design it up front and actually have some control, but also produce things that can be of value to the communities that are around the mountain. So I'll just make that point. If you haven't heard what Outdoor Recreation Alliance is doing, I would recommend you reach out to them and make sure you have an understanding and be engaged in it. And I think some of you are, but I don't know if all of you are. So just bring that point up.
I can speak on that real quickly. I'm on the board of the Pikes Peak Outdoor Recreational Alliance. So we were one of 8 or 9 projects that were accepted in the state. It's a GOCO Colorado Parks and Wildlife partnership. They're regional partnerships to develop outdoor recreation in larger zones. Pikes Peak Outdoor Recreation Alliance is actually the flagship organization that the state is now pointing everybody else to look at. We have a monthly meeting that's in a room like this with sometimes up to 45 participants, and that includes local communities, nonprofits, for-profits, outdoor recreation businesses, federal, state agencies. Everyone's at the table talking. So it is very positive for the area. Ring the Peak could be a significant, or is right now a significant part of our outdoor recreation plan for the area and the master plan. If you haven't seen that, you can go to Pikes Peak's PPORA's website and take a look at that master plan. NES did a great job on that a couple of years ago. And so that plan is being used as part of this overall regional design. And we're a little different than this organization. Is the plan includes El Paso County, Teller County, and Fremont County. So we head south, and Cripple Creek, we were just lucky enough to get, we weren't, but the Gold Belt Scenic Byway just landed a CDOT grant to look at trail systems from along Shelf Road. So from Fremont County to Teller County. So we're working with them on what those trails might look like. Motorized, non-motorized, user groups. PPORA is an all-inclusive organization that does include as many user groups as possible at all different levels of access. Access and transportation are 2 big things that we're looking at with this plan. How do we get non-traditional users to be more active in the outdoors? And how do we meet the needs of the current users that are out there? So it's a great opportunity. The Ring the Peak Trail does go around the peak. We're short about 13 miles on the west side. What our hope is to alleviate some of the issues of overuse on the eastern side. And what the chairman brought up with his concepts of additional trails up to the summit. We've been meeting with the Highway, Forest Service, and BLM. And they're all very favorable with the idea of conservation and usage being both considered during the conversation. So we're looking at an additional connector to Ring the Peak that allows traffic, both motorized and non-motorized, to go between the communities of Cripple Creek, Victor, and the trail itself. So it's a pretty large project, and it's moving ahead very well. But PPORA is the flagship organization for the state in this type of design.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think the purpose of the grant is for them to go through a process to build a strategic design. It doesn't have funding to go past the design, but seriously, my sense of it is if they can succeed at building the strategic design, that'll be a vision for the future. And then different communities will be able maybe to pursue grants or funding or some other type of resource that would allow each piece and part of that maybe perhaps to ultimately be done and completed.
Yeah, some of the grants we have received do include construction.
Okay.
Construction and design, not just the planning. The planning phase is pretty much over. Phase 2 is management. And that's the largest concern right now is how do we manage a large recreation area that has multiple land managers within that district. And a great example is the Arkansas Headwaters. They're the only program like that in the country that has a single management over different private, government, local, federal lands. And those agreements seem to be working really well. So that's a good model, but NES has pulled up several. We talked about plans earlier, 40, 50 plans for transportation. We had over 100 plans, local plans that had to be filtered through NES to come up with this master plan of what this is going to look like. Now they'll take a look at how do we manage the property.
And I appreciate that point. I'll just, not to belabor this, but to the fact that we had 100 strategic plans on usage of the Pikes Peak area pretty much meant we don't have a plan.
Just
That's
one
part of the problem. Yes, go
One
ahead.
comment, if you don't mind, I guess, not to be a negative Nelly, and that's not the intent of this, but just to ask, was the impacts upon transportation from a vehicle perspective and access to those additional places talked about or thought about or considered?
Oh, absolutely. It's not, when we talk access and transportation, we're also trying to relieve the number of cars by creating shuttle services and shuttle services that are accessible to populations that may not currently have access to the mountain. We also have to look at community parks as part of that, because we do have user groups where picnicking with your family at a park that's their outdoor recreation experience. And that's what they want to do. So making that part of it as well. So we're trying to look at the overall picture, but
I was sure that you did. I just wanted to ask the question.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
And for Todd and John, I don't know that I've had an opportunity to share with either of you the plan that I built. It's an illustrative plan, but I'll show it to you after the meeting today. Okay, thanks. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think we are completed with 7B.
Yeah.
Yes, Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think we're in the home stretch. Just have 3 final reports. CDOT, I think Shane's going to give that one under 8H, and then stack report, and then I've got a brief few comments, and I think we're pretty much done.
Okay, very good.
Good morning. Shane Ferguson with CDOT. I'll go through some of the active projects and talk about some of the planned projects coming up for advertisement soon this year. The US 285 bridge replacement south of Fairplay, the deck was poured last week. We're expecting to be paved roads here within the next couple of weeks, and it'll be open for access by November 1st. Kind of expecting actually to open before November 1st, but as of right now, it's still planned for November 1st. The US 285 chain up station on Kenosha Pass, we'll be paving that on September 27th and 28th. That chain up station at Kenosha Pass on 285 will be open for this winter. The other project we have will begin, I believe, in the spring. That is on this side of Hoosier Pass, going to I guess you'd say the west or north side of Hoosier Pass. That'll begin in the early spring for that project. The last chain up station, which is on the other side of Hoosier Pass, it's still in design. Some right-of-way constrictions and problems that we're still working through. So that one, we're hoping to have that under construction calendar year 24. The MAMSIP project, the paving on I-25, we have close to 4 miles of the southbound direction concrete paved in both lanes. That's progressing very well. We're getting about 500 to 600 feet per day of pavement laid down for both lanes in that southbound direction. The 94 project, the Charter Oaks Ranch Road and MAMSIP as a whole, we're about 30% complete as a whole for that whole project. We're progressing on the grading and earthwork on 94 and the roundabout for the Charter Oaks Ranch Road project. Research and Powers, the DDI portion was open today. And so as far as my latest updates, it's going well. So there's always some concern there to see how it's going, but we actually opened it up last night, and everything seems to be working very well on that project. We have the scheduled ribbon cutting on September 29th for that project as well. For future projects, the US 24 surface treatment project that picks up at Chipeta Park and travels through Woodland Park up towards Divide. That will be advertised for construction this October with bids opening in November. So fingers crossed on how that will continue. We will get a portion of that project paid the way we've set it up for the schedule on the bidding opportunity. But it will depend on the bids and how they come in. If we will end that construction project on the other side of Wood or on this side of Woodland Park, or if we'll take it to Divide. So that will be dependent upon construction or bids that we receive from the contractors. The US 285 and 9 intersection replacement or intersection improvements and bridge replacement project is also to be advertised this October with bid opening in November. And then the last project I'll talk about is the I-25 Fillmore to the Garden of the Gods project. Well under design and with the anticipation of going to advertisement in January for construction to begin late spring, early summer in 2023. And that is my updates at this time. Any questions from any municipality?
Any questions for CDOT at this time? Okay, I'll just say, just continue to say thanks for the CDOT projects. There's a lot going on with CDOT investment in our region, and I appreciate that. And you didn't even mention all the projects. Yeah, so there's even more than what you mentioned. Looks like you outpaced yourself for the research powers. You got the project done before we could do the ribbon cutting, but you know what? I don't mind that at all.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question.
Please
for
go
you
ahead.
on the potential for 24 work west of Woodland Park to Divide. Is that just resurfacing or is that redesign?
That's just resurfacing
Okay.
at this time.
All right.
I know there's been comments and questions about the 67 and 24 location. That location is in the 10-year plan as part of improvements on 67, but that is on the second, I'd say the second half of the 10-year plan. So currently we don't have any construction funding identified. We may start design on some of those portions probably within the next 3 years or so.
Perfect. Great. Thanks. I appreciate it.
And Shane, just as an FYI, our Divide master plan, which is for that potential county development within the area, will be coming out soon. We'll make sure that we forward all of that over to you guys so that you understand kind of what the county's looking at in the future and work that into your planning.
Okay, thank you very much. I will mention one other project real quick, and that's Woodland Park on 67 north of 24. The Transportation Commission is voting this week on Senate Bill 60, which is that funding bill in the 10-year plan, if you guys are familiar from the efforts that we did this past spring. And that project is one of the projects. Once that funding has been approved by the Transportation Commission, we are looking to have that project under construction in calendar year 24, which would be surface treatment for the first half mile and then that drainage and widening up to Kelly's Road, correct? And that would be calendar year 24 construction.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. How about the stack update?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'll go ahead and give that for Commissioner Williams. But Commissioner Elsner, you might want to get ready because I'll cue you up. Hey, I'll be very quick in that the major items was they talked about the GHG or the greenhouse gas thing, and they reported that both North Front Range and DRCOG and CDOT will all be making their GHG targets for CDOT and DRCOG. They needed to use the mitigation plan. So very interesting to see how that all is panning out. So we will pay close attention when it comes our turn to show our compliance as well in the next couple of years. The only other item of interest was the state wildlife crossing program. And that's where, again, if you've got a migratory pattern, I think I used the word migratory correctly. If you have a migratory pattern of sheep or deer or elk, and you have a lot of fatalities of both wildlife strikes, but also from drivers from those strikes, that you can sort of do some predictive modeling, figure out where those happen, and put in some sort of wildlife, either overpass or underpass. And so they kind of shared about that program at the CDOT level and the lives that it's saving. So from that perspective, again, sort of looking at that, it was interesting, and there might be some opportunities down the road. But I think it's in some of the more rural areas of the state that it's more of that. But with that, Commissioner Eldner did sort of start the meeting off, I think, as we started doing the announcements. He did mention the fatality in Park County and how CDOT seems to be moving away from being focused on things that they're intended to be focused on.
Yeah, that was a rant that I had. I think it lasted 5 to 7 minutes, may have been longer. But one of the issues that I have with the way CDOT is going, and it's not CDOT's fault, it's the state legislature and the governor who are providing the guidance for CDOT. But we did have a fatality. Actually, 2 people died because both of the people in the vehicle at the bottom of Crow Hill and Bailey. If you ever drive 285, it starts at the top of Crow Hill. They say it's a 7% grade. I did a little calculating. I think it's an 8.5% grade. But then, I'm not sure about my math sometimes. But it's a little over 2 mile straight, steep downhill with about 120-degree curve at the bottom with either a winery or the South Platte River that you can land in. In this case, it was a truck carrying some earth moving equipment. So it was a rather large flatbed. Both of them ended up in the creek and the 2 fatalities. And my complaint to CDOT was they're spending a lot of money on greenhouse gas things and all of the fluff, but we have issues with our roads. I saw, and it was just before the meeting, a piece of pavement come up off of a truck that went by because it's starting to separate the overlayment, and it just missed a vehicle. So, the roads are falling apart. They aren't providing the safety measures that they need to provide, and they're putting all of this money into things that where, yes, greenhouse gas is nice, but we have roads in this state that are not safe, that really need work. They talk about the great work they're doing, saying, okay, we're going to pave another 300 miles or 200 miles. We're going to do surface treatment this year in the state. Well, I think at one point I calculated for them, I said, you could spend all of that money just in Park County. And Park County is not a very big part of the state. I mean, we're a large county, but we aren't the biggest by far. So it was interesting. The good news is after that, I had 3 transportation commissioners reach out to me and say, we need to chat about some things. And one of them was also about the transportation study with transit. So I think maybe we're making progress, but please, all of you, contact your legislators and tell them, well, I think, I'm going to be a little partisan. Heidi Gannell had a really neat ad come out. It said, we put all this money, so we're going to finally fix the damn roads. Well, I haven't seen any roads really being fixed very well because they keep moving the money somewhere else. So talk to your legislators, get CDOT back to doing what CDOT does really well, which is highways. And that was my rant.
Yeah, I didn't think I could summarize it as well, so.
I'm going to make the point, I think there are others on this board that would have a similar sentiment. For me, the 2 most important requirements for roads, one is safety and the other one is productivity. And productivity deals with when you just have a bunch of people sitting in traffic jams. People can't get to work, can't live their lives in a more healthy way. And I'll also make the point that produces a lot of cars sitting around with engines running, that some people should be objecting to about that as well. It does feel to me like the legislature sometimes forgets what I think are the 2 most important requirements for our infrastructure, which is safety and productivity. And those can be done in concert with other things that the legislature may have great concerns about. But sometimes, I don't know, it feels like they forget about these other things. So I'll just make that point. Thank you for expressing your 5 to 7 minute rant for us. So are there any comments or questions with regard to the stack update? Okay, hearing none, I think, I'm sorry, yes.
If I could, it's interesting to hear about the game underpasses or overpasses. I fully support that. But in the more urban environment, like where I live in my neighborhood, perhaps we could work on Squirrel overpasses. Those guys are always in the road.
I'd never thought of that one before. That's a good one. Okay. All right, thank you. Executive Director's report.
I'm going to keep it super brief, and I just want to thank Commissioner Stone for making this happen today. When you reached out about a month or so ago and said we have a window of opportunity to get a PPACG board meeting scheduled up here, we moved on it. So really thank you for making this happen. This is a great turnout. Really appreciate your support and the board members who came up here today. But also especially want to thank Dolly, who's been a champ in stepping up and helping us out in so many ways as we've had our office manager vacancy. And she helped in a huge, huge way to make this all come together as well today. So just really appreciate Dolly's help, Commissioner Stone for making it happen, and all the board members for your support today. Thank you.
All right, on behalf of the board, thank you, Dolly. Everybody say thank you, Dolly.
Thank you.
Super. Anything else, Andy? Is that it?
No, that's it for now.
Okay, great. Yes, please.
I just want to make one brief comment. You mentioned sales tax revenue. Everybody needs to watch the state legislature this year. I serve on the task force on tax policy. And one of the big issues that I think they may be working on this year is taxing services, which of course would greatly increase your revenue, but it adds some complexity. To give you an idea, Colorado taxes 19 services and sales tax. State of Hawaii taxes 167. So I think the legislature is going to take that up, and you may see some movement on adding services to what's being taxed. So that should help if that's what you want to do. I look at it and say, you know, they're opening a can of worms. It's going to be interesting to see what comes out.
Thank you for that update. I appreciate that. All right, on to number 9, if there's any member entity announcements that anybody would like to make at this point. All right, seeing none, I think we do have a lunch here, and I think we're asking people to enjoy that lunch. I just want to again express my appreciation to Teller County and the team here for hosting us. Thank you so much. I'll tell you what, there was a lot of really enlightening and interesting comments from some of the service providers here in Teller and some of the public agencies, municipalities, and the county itself. Those were really awesome to hear that. And I'm glad we had an opportunity to listen to that stuff. We are looking forward to hopefully in the near future doing this in Park County. I hope we can get that set up and do something similar down the road.
Anytime you guys want to come up to Park County on a Wednesday, the room will be available. I don't care what my county manager may have said. I had a chat with him. And the planning commission can meet in the afternoon.
I am interested in doing that. I think that would be good to do. I think it's important for us to, you know, we can't do it every time, but to do it every once in a while, occasionally, I think is very important, because it tells everybody we do care. We do want to listen, right? So that's really great. So those are my comments. Oh, yes, Roland, please.
We're going to have a new building when them come up there.
Pardon?
They have a new building for us. Are you going to have a new building for us?
Well, ours is relatively new. It's only about 2.5 years old.
Okay, all right.
That's not too bad. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. I don't believe we have any more on the agenda at this point. So at this time, seeing no more items on the agenda, this meeting is adjourned. Don't forget about lunch. And I think we have the opportunity to tour the building as well. All right, everybody, have a great day.